Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
See,
Well,
now we're
that's it.
podcasting.
Yeah.
Dude, perfect.
Oh, actually, you record an intro beforehand, so we can just launch, right?
That's the beauty of it. Is I usually wait until the very last minute and then forget what I was going to say, think of something to say, record the intro, and then launch.
Oh yeah, for the Power Hour with Evan.
Yes,
you were rambling for sure.
I was rambling because I was trying. To be honest with you, I was really trying to figure out the best way. I wanted to make sure what I said was extremely complimentary because I really like the guy. And so, yeah, I explored more than one rabbit hole than I likely would have normally gone down. But it was important to me to at least cover the points that I did. And speaking of the Power Hour, let's do a Power Hour. And by that, I mean, if we go over 60 minutes, it's no problem whatsoever. We'll just call it
just like aiming
the Power Hour Plus.
Power Hour Plus. We tried to do with Evan, it was 80 minutes. But I actually think it was good to reduce that and set the timeline because I think we didn't spend too much time on the periphery. We dove in pretty deep, pretty fast, and it was good.
It's easy.
Right.
I mean, no, he's not too tall, so you can get shallow really quick.
He could be over his head underwater very quickly. I was going to talk, as we spoke earlier, I wanted to ask about climbing, but we're going to get to that. Let's dive into the mystery man here. Because you and I have spoken before.
We have.
Trevor, we were together last week. I said I wanted to do a podcast, and so here we are. This is the perfect...
This is happening now.
Perfect time for last week.
I was going to say it's a perfect pairing, but three's not a pair.
But both... But again, it's a prime number, so we're good.
Math.
It is. You get to introduce yourself because much like when I was talking about Evan, I will start rambling. So you give me the wave tops, and then we'll dive deep.
All right, so we're sitting here all together because I joined the Navy when I was 19.
Go back. Where are you from? Have you not ever done this before?
I'm trying. I was taking a backtrack with a little rabbit hole immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just lay it on what he told me. He just said, birth is a good place to start.
Pretty much.
All right, yeah, I can start there.
I think that's
Start
how
from the
it
beginning
that's
for us.
So I was born in Southern California.
There we go.
Grew up there. Didn't go too far from there for a long time, and then moved to Chicago. And I was going to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, studying lithography, printmaking, and museum restoration. That was 2006.
So obviously this is after high school.
Yeah, directly after high school. I had no intentions of joining the military growing up. Long family history in the military. Both my grandfathers were in, great-grandfathers, generations and generations back. So it was a family thing, but no intention of doing that myself. War was in full swing, and I felt like I wasn't getting a lot accomplished.
Would it be rude of me to say which one?
Both.
Yeah, 06, 07 for sure. Both.
06, 07, that was both for sure.
It's a good point, though.
I mean,
No,
it
is.
yeah. Because, I don't know. You were both in the Navy and y'all ended up in the desert. I just don't understand.
Certainly wasn't Nom.
Yeah.
No. There's no greenery.
Yeah.
Well, not trees.
Not trees, yeah.
I didn't feel like I was getting a lot out of that program. I didn't feel like I was doing something that was going to accomplish a lot. I felt like they sort of sold me a bill that didn't fit what ended up being there.
This is at art school.
At the Art Academy, yeah, at the School of the Art Institute. That's no bash on the school. It's a great program and it's a great school, but what I felt like I was going to be getting out of it was something that probably would have fit closer to an Italian artist commune where you're learning like a really specific kind of
restoration,
romantic restoration artwork and very old world, and that's not quite what was going on. They were pushing more of a gallery owner, gallery manager, modern outlook.
Have you always been into art?
Oh yeah, my mom studied art in college, and my dad is a cartoonist now for the LA Times, and he was for the Daily News when I was growing up, and he's also a bronze sculptor. So there's a lot of art in the family, it was an easy transition for me to think, oh, I'm going to do this because I like it and I'm good at it.
And surrounded by it.
Yeah, and surrounded by it. And then it was that or music for me because I grew up playing jazz and classical trumpet, teaching it as well as performing in LA. And that was because of the area that I grew up in. A lot of studio musicians, a lot of their kids. So basically everybody I grew up with now is a sound engineer or a studio musician. So instead, I went the art school route, didn't feel like I was getting something out of the program. I was a decent athlete in high school and felt like I want to do something that's worthwhile. What's the hardest thing I can do? And that's what led me to, I'm going to go join the Navy and go to Buds. The amount of naivety that was involved in that is extreme.
Astronomical even. I have the same experience. You don't know what you don't know, but you actually had access to much more information than I did.
I had access, but I think I was so far outside the circle of even understanding where that information was, because I had no interest in it growing up, that I didn't pursue the information that was there because I wanted to get into it immediately.
Do you remember how you found out about SEAL teams?
I think my earliest exposure to it was reading the LERP books by Larry Chambers.
Yep.
As well as some of the SOG books by John Plaster. And they mention the SEAL teams as a side.
John
side
Plaster,
note.
the master sniper? Is it the same guy?
Maybe.
I think so.
No, I believe that was the title of a book.
You know what's interesting, though? You're talking about in 2006, 2007, you were reading books about Vietnam.
Yeah.
In the time period where the country was engaged in war on a two-theater front.
Yeah.
You certainly did not use the tools available to you to gather information.
No, I did not use the internet as my friend, nor anything else.
But you actually might have gotten a better representation of what the community was looking
in
back in
retrospect. I'm exceptionally happy that the lens that I was looking at it through was through straightforward, non-romanticized images from guys that lived the special operations lifestyle that formed the basis for what the entire special operations community really is. I'm glad that that's the lens I was looking at it through, because they don't make it sound easy.
Yeah.
Nor do they make it sound in quotes fun.
And they had decades of time separating their experiences and then actually documenting their experiences.
Yes.
And I think there's value there to have time.
There's no rose-colored glasses that they're looking through. They are looking straight forward and wanting to recount this information because it was important. And I'm glad that that's how I saw it, and at least saw the community as a whole. And I'm speaking from the Ranger battalions all the way through the SEAL teams. So
you didn't get all of your information from Charlie Sheen.
The documentary?
Yeah.
Which is 100% accurate.
So seriously,
watch out.
is there like a God mode on the gun, or is that kind of a joke? Or
It's only to see through walls.
Yeah,
okay.
It's to see through concrete walls.
Okay.
It's earliest generations. Everything about that movie is so catastrophically bad that it's amazing. They're running around with telemarketer headsets on. You're talking to each other.
It's a science fiction.
They're fielding calls. It's like a call center. They
It's
just
great.
happen to be in another country at the
I
time.
watched it recently, and the reality is they captured 60 years worth of experience in a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
And all of those experiences happened to, I think it was 8 guys, which Trevor and I can both attest to. That's not the case, because you travel throughout your career and you navigate. But these 8 guys, they got the big mish. And the officer was like liaisoning with foreign intel agents at restaurants. It's amazing.
It's hilarious because
but wait,
you might hear or meet one guy that did one thing that's sort of like that one time
in 20 years.
Yeah.
So I propose the next time we're together, we need to get 1 or 2 other guys with your background, and we should just do a podcast while watching that movie.
So I'm going to have to read Mark in now. I'm going to have to read Mark in. And I guess now this would be a good time to do it, because this will force me to do it.
Okay.
So I recently was on Rogan, and he asked me about military movies.
Yes.
And I gave my opinion on a few. And I didn't know that they were going to cut that video up into smaller segments, and they did. And
it's incredible.
Been viewed a few times. There are a few thousand comments, most people calling me an asshole, which I have no defense against that.
Just like I resemble that remark, or all of them.
I don't think they realize that, like, I'm saying it lightheartedly. Perhaps I came off like an asshole. Regardless, I have had, I kid you not, hundreds of people reach out to me and say, please do more. So much like Joe does the MMA shows,
Yeah.
I'm going to do cleared hot tactical asshole shows. And we are going to do exactly that, because the more I thought about it, it's endless. Like, my brother-in-law is a firefighter. Why shouldn't we sit down and watch Backdraft together and discuss the technical discrepancies? You and I should sit down and definitely watch Cliffhanger, because I'm sure that ice climbing
K2.
military, police, fire, doctors, lawyers, tactical assholes could go on forever.
I will watch Cliffhanger with you gladly. If we get to watch the Iger sanction first.
Done.
I think we watch. So the goal is 15-minute episodes.
Yeah.
We cut the movie up into pieces.
Okay.
We play a scene.
Nice.
We discuss how much of an asshole they are from a tactical perspective.
Yeah.
The only movie we can't discuss is Charlie Sheen's Navy SEALs.
Yeah, because
it's a documentary.
Because it's accurate.
Yeah.
No, I got driven to the point because people, and I'm sitting there.
But Kurt's movie is fair game.
Yes, Kurt's movie is fair game.
We just have to get Kurt in with us to do it.
I wonder if he would dissect his own movie with. I believe he would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, you're either SWAT or you're not.
That'd be entertaining.
Oh.
I mean,
boom.
And I know some police officers.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me that they wouldn't have a good time sitting around dissecting that.
Oh, yeah.
And so that I have to do it. And now that this will launch, this episode will be out on Monday. I'm going to try to do one Tactical Assholes episode per month.
Okay.
Perfect.
And
are you still here tomorrow? Because we should just do that first one tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be worth it. I got to change some of the formatting. I need to get some wireless lavaliers because I'm going to dress up to watch these movies.
Okay, then for sure.
In uniform.
Then for sure, I we're watching Errol Flynn's Robin Hood. Then for sure.
Yes.
Because
we were.
Because I'll have to say is like, wow, I'm in the company of three archers. That was my fucking favorite movie growing up as a kid.
I'm in.
Total. I had the whole final speech where he's fighting Guy of Gisborne on the stairs.
Well, then we'll watch. What's the other guy? Kevin. What's his name?
Oh, Hafner.
Oh yeah.
Men in
Tights.
We'll watch that one too.
Yeah.
Dudley will join us for that because of the archery expertise.
Yeah.
He'll wear tights as well.
That's all.
That's on tape.
I'm gonna watch Navy SEALs through night vision goggles that make a noise when you flip them down. Oh, that's right. They don't because you're trying to be sneaky.
For sure. At least get them in. You know, the one that was like to the 2-into-1, so you'll get motion sick every time you turn your head.
For sure.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. I'll dress up. Things will be on backwards. The magazine might be in the gun backwards. The optic might be on backwards. It's hard to say.
No, it's not.
But here's what's crazy. I can give you examples of all of those things. There's a recruiting poster for the Navy. Two dudes in an Arctic environment standing there. A guy has, I believe, an M4 with an aim point on the top of his rifle.
Okay.
It's on backwards.
Perfect.
It happens everywhere. There's just this lack of authenticity and accuracy, and I can't think of anything more fun than making fun of that.
That's pretty good.
And people will think I'm an asshole, and that's okay.
So there's a
we're all gonna be assholes.
What? Yeah.
Tactical assholes.
So circling back, I'm glad I didn't have any of that exposure joining the Navy.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have known anyway until you got in. You'd be like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
This isn't what I saw.
Wait.
Exactly.
So boot camp isn't like Full Metal Jacket? All I'm here to do... It might
actually be for the Marine Corps. We just learned how to march and fold underwear.
No, you learn how to fold underwear and clean urinals.
Yeah.
You're a janitor.
I tell you what, though, looking back...
Because you're going to be either cleaning urinals or chipping paint once you wash out of buds, right? You ring the bell, you're chipping paint.
I will say this, though. Looking back, Navy boot camp, looking back many years, there were not a lot of things that I took from that and applied to the future career. But I will say, looking back, the diversity of individuals that showed up for that first day, that it was 8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Everybody needed that. Like, because that was the molding of, Instagram and social media and all that stuff didn't exist then, but it was hey, this me thing, get rid of that. Now you're going to become an element and you're going to become we. I mean, there were people, and I bet you had the same experience, that you would hear them crying at night, sleeping. And I don't mean that in a pejorative manner.
No.
It's just, I was sitting there, I'm like,
you're outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like some of these people never left their hometowns. And now I say I didn't travel, but that means that I just wasn't traveling internationally in my mind now, right?
yeah, you were seeing parts of the U.S.
Yeah, I was still seeing parts of the U.S. There were guys that were in my boot camp class that never left their hometown of 10,000 people.
So for them, though, I think that experience was essential. For them,
absolutely.
that was discipline they might not have been getting at home. It was structure. I think, honestly, for some of the people that I was there with, it was probably the most consistently they had eaten in their entire life. I mean, you're getting
there's
economic
some,
spectrum, educational spectrum. How much of
Social
that did I use
spectrum.
in the SEAL teams? Zero. However, that is just that's your buy-in. That's the chips come in, then that's what you're going to do if you want to make your way to the extremely difficult test you have to take on the 4th week to become a SEAL.
Granted, it's
Which is push-ups, and
exceptionally
pull-ups and
Extremely difficult.
sit-ups. There was this one too, and a run.
Okay.
I think it was a mile. The filter is wide on the beginning end because
Sure.
we need many participants.
Yes.
yeah, it's a grate with like 2 bars.
There-
Just everything comes through.
Yep.
Sometimes something gets stuck.
We need volume. So continue.
So get to boot camp, go through boot camp. At the time, they were just starting the segregation of everybody that was going to be in a SOF type unit into a boot camp class. So we had guys that were going to be divers or prospective divers, EOD techs, search and rescue swimmers, guys going to BUDS, and guys that were going to the SWIC program, all in the same class.
I definitely did not have that experience.
Which, I mean, I have no other lens to look at it through. It was good and bad. The good part was because of the segregation, at least all of our mindsets were the same. So you're not dealing with Joe Schmo that understands he's only going to get a paycheck for breathing in your class, right? So
Yeah, the people were driven. It's
everybody's driven. They want to be there. The bad part
That's
being
that's an MOS, breathing.
it is.
Okay.
The bad part being you get treated as if you're trying to do something special.
which you are.
You are. But you're getting treated that way by guys that maybe aren't part of those programs.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They
Yeah.
might. Okay.
They
might be slightly jaded towards your.
They might be slightly
chosen
jaded
path.
by you experiencing people that had been in the profession that you want to do. Now, what's interesting looking back on it is that I recently spoke with a guy, Jeff Reed, the guy I was up mushing dogs in Alaska with. He and I and two other guys, I think, are the only guys that made it through that boot camp class.
Through BUDS, you mean?
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
And I think we had 80 people, 90 people in my...
It's a higher
Boot
than
camp
average
class?
attrition rate.
Yeah. Now, we had a bunch of guys that were going to the diver and search and rescue programs, so you can kind of eliminate them. So we had a slightly higher than normal attrition rate, but it's interesting looking back at that program thinking, well, they're trying to create more SEALs or more SWIC guys, and it didn't necessarily function the way they thought it would.
What year was that?
So that was 07.
So the mandate had already been given to graduate more dudes.
I think it had actually.
It was just prior to that?
Well,
Like a
I
few
think it had
years?
been discussed for decades before.
Yeah.
I think
No, but I think the mandate came down.
the mandate came down, but what I'm saying is I think before it became doctrine or
Okay.
before it became pushed, it had always been a desire to increase throughput.
Yeah.
Because, if you have 50 people who get out across the SEAL teams
Yeah.
after 20 years and you replace them with 51 people from BUDS, you're taking a huge net loss in experience. So they're trying to, rapidly throw more people in there to aggregate that out.
Yeah, but I think, and I don't remember what year this was, but it would have been around the time that Team 7 got stood up. Rick Smethers was running the program in Coronado, and I think it was him who actually received the
The pedal to the metal doctrine.
Make it happen.
The make it happen. Here, we need 500 dudes or whatever it was, and because I remember sitting in his office, and a guy named Jim Bowman from the Olympic Training Center was sitting in that same conversation, and talking about how difficult it actually is to even get the numbers that were being graduated at that time, much less okay, you want another 150 per cycle or another
Well, and
whatever.
what they're realizing, I mean, I'm kind of pedaling forward, way far forward. I spent time on the jump team, so I got to see part of the recruiting and the Goodwill effort for the Navy, and the issue that it comes down to get more team guys is recruiting. You still have to get some dude to volunteer.
Yeah.
So that's
like whether or not you get somebody more athletic, they still have to volunteer.
I can tell you
That's the issue.
being on the instructor side of the house, they might have sent us more students. And there were, what would be the way to appropriately phrase this? There were discussions about throughput, but there were never mandates for us to deviate the standard, which is one thing at the end of the day I felt good at, or felt good about going home at the end of the night, because
like they wanted you to have an eye on, hey, we are trying to make this happen, but there was no discussion of, hey, if somebody's not making it, just give them a little nudge.
There was never any discussion of that. The standards were the standards, which maintains the quality of the product.
Yeah.
And even if they had pushed on us and said, you guys need to get more people through, I can tell you as an instructor, I would not have, and I would have waited till the boss
that
went
would have
home
been
at
no
night,
surprise.
and we would have had additional training.
Extracurricular.
Well,
work.
that's the one thing you can like, and again, I'm skipping forward too. Like one of Mark's new books is sitting on the table. There's a book, metaphorical book like that does exist for SEAL training. Almost every day is in that book, and as long as you leave those pages alone, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But even if the higher ups change those pages, what they can't do is control the instructor staff at all times. And the instructor staff is the final gateway. It's not the 3-ring binder.
Yeah.
It's the people who are administering the curriculum and saying at the end of the day, you meet the standards or you don't. I want to work with this person or I don't, because I understand the environment that I'm coming back from to try to impart knowledge on these students.
And here's the deal: is you show up on a Tuesday and you have to do log PT. That's what's ID'd in the book. Okay, maybe log PT has a specific set of things that you have to participate in as a student. But how the staff tell you to do something or make you do a thing, that's where the gray area lies, that you can mold the training to make sure that the standards remain the same. And you can see that.
But there's
student.
There's a huge sort of history of momentum around those standards. Plus, as an instructor, you've become a BUDS instructor after you've deployed. Right?
I was there as rehab.
As rehab, yeah. So you're coming back from the field, and all you're doing is looking at guys like, I would see, like, I could imagine this, like you're seeing an individual, and they're not quite to the standard. Mm-hmm. You still don't want to send that guy out to stand beside guys that you care about and worked with, and just a couple months before.
And I can speak to a different experience than you had, because you went through in the late 90s.
When BUDS was still difficult, yes.
Yes.
And you went through in the winter, right?
Of course.
When it was snowing.
Coldest
It was
winter on record
Yes,
ever.
okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
But what I'm speaking to is, I was impressed as well as glad in retrospect that the staff that were there were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yep.
That was the information that was getting imparted, that day one, week one, they were sitting there looking at us, telling us this information, like, hey, look, this isn't a joke. This isn't some game that you're playing. It's 2008. We've had casualties. There have been people that are
6.5, 7 years of war.
up. There are people that are dead. Red Wings had happened 2 years prior.
Yep.
Like, it was a real thing that you were getting involved in. And I'm glad that I got to see that side of it, because then you're told, really, hey, this is what you're being expected to perform because of these things.
It makes the, as an instructor going back there, it makes the stakes extremely real.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you what, Mark, you made the point of, talking about whether or not you would want these people to go back and work with your buddies. You have experienced that same insight into people's character and soul, but it was just through exercise. Because if you think about what BUDS is, we're just suppressing and depressing a human being, whether it's through, exhaustion, removal of food, sand for sure, hypothermia, exposure to the elements, all of these tools. And all we're trying to do is push them to their lowest spot possible.
Yeah. Repetition.
And and then here's your standard. Meet it. Are you going to cheat? Are you going to meet the standard? Are you going to quit? How many times have you seen that when it comes to exercise? An incredibly difficult workout. And it's like you watch somebody and you see them, they're digging their own hole, right? And they're putting themselves in the hole. And then you start counting. You're like, 13 in that set instead of 15, huh? Like, and that gives you insight. And if you had to pick that person to go be on a belay with you on a mountain 6 pitches up, you're like, no. Because if you're going to make that decision there in that moment, what else are you going to deviate on? That's really all Buds is. You say the same thing in the environments that you've operated into for the last, however long you've been training people in that physical aspect.
Well, and that's why you get hammered down as a class and as an individual on things that people, in me relating it, ask, well, that's weird. You say you show up 8 seconds late literally 8 seconds late for an evolution. Evolution being a run, a swim, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you get hammered. And hammered to the point of that evolution no longer exists. Now today's evolution is you're going to get hammered. And that's because if you can't perform the function of showing up on time, what else can you not do?
Isn't it that if you show up 8 seconds late, that means you're actually 10 minutes and 8 seconds late?
More or less.
Something like that.
As the instructor staff rolls out, you need to be there as a class ready to go.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that warmed my heart more
than having a late
coming
class.
over the berm with a lovely, delicious, probably vanilla frappuccino with swizzle on it, and seeing the class in disrepair. Like, oh, I've been waiting for this.
Oh my favorite beat.
Oh my God.
My favorite beating to recount is from a 2-mile open ocean swim where we showed up a little bit late.
What phase?
First phase.
Yeah, you're gonna get hammered in first phase.
Oh man, it was terrible. They're like, all right, well, you guys want to show up 3 minutes late? That's fine. We're doing 300 Smurf jacks in your wetsuits. We got finished with that. That took, I don't know how long, half an hour. And then they tell us, oh, by the way, yeah, we're still doing the swim.
And all of you are going to fail, which we're also going to count against you. It's not a big deal.
2 people passed.
Yeah.
Me and my swim buddy, I think passed by like 5 seconds. And they looked at us like, well, crap. All right, get out. Get out of here.
See what you guys didn't see. For one, as an instructor,
We barely passed.
I didn't understand as a student, I'm like, does 8 seconds really matter? Because we had the same thing. Like, our head count's off by 1. Does it really matter? There's 150 people. Yes, it does.
Yeah, and people are quitting left and right, so God knows where that dude went.
Yes. Well, then I go back as an instructor, and it makes absolute perfect sense.
Yeah.
But what you didn't see, and what I saw as the instructor staff, like when the entire class fails, we're like, God damn it. We can't count that swim. But let's tell them we're going to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's mechanisms as an instructor that I didn't know existed as a student. And you just have to learn how to navigate the seams.
Yeah, and I got to see that as a rollback, which was entertaining to watch.
Yeah. So so you're still in boot camp. Talk us through your Buds journey and then
So
where you ended
still
off.
in boot camp. When I was going through, we still had INDOC and PTRR.
Yep.
Which
So now you're in Buds.
they
if
have
you're
since
talking-
eliminated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you finish up boot camp. That takes 8 weeks. Following that, we sat in the very first set of pre-Buds programming, which they were still figuring out. I mean, it was kind of a mess. It was good to get a little more PT in, but as a military program, it was a bit of a mess at the time. I've talked to guys since that say it's running really well.
Which it should be after a decade.
You'd think.
I would hope.
Look, frankly, it takes time, and dealing with your bureaucracy like the Navy, you're going to have issues with hiring and scheduling and programming those kinds of programs, especially something with such dire consequences, which is a reality. You're dealing with a job that has fatal consequences. So they were
So shit matters.
Yeah, they were very particular about what's going on. So it's going to take time to get it to function. We went from there to Buds and went through INDOC and PTRR, which don't exist anymore as far as I know.
I think they've just been replaced by that
They've
program.
been replaced by that program. At the time, those were built as stopgaps for people that had issues like teeth problems, eyesight, they needed LASIK, learning how to lift a log over your head, learning how to run with a boat. Because you don't just show up and all of a sudden it's like, all right, yeah, I know how to lift a Zodiac with a team of 7 other guys. That's just normal. Because you don't. You're going to fuck that up and you're going to drop it on somebody. Guaranteed. And they do. Yeah. People get hurt in all those evolutions. So you learn how to do all the things. All the running, boots and pants, how to get wet and sandy, how to be a sugar cookie, which means getting wet
important stuff.
And covered in sand.
It's critical to training.
Wait,
you know that.
That's called a sugar cookie?
It's a sugar cookie.
I fucking love that.
Wet and sandy. Yeah.
And feeling sweet.
Well, and here's the thing is Mark, you can do it wrong many number of ways, and they'll find a way.
Yeah.
Hey, so why are your armpits not covered in sand?
This is true.
Go fix this.
This is true.
For time. Yeah, that's a thing. So you learn how to do all these things, all the way down to how to wear your uniform. And they're all measures to find out how competent you are at giving a shit.
Yes.
And things like your uniform is a great way to measure whether or not somebody gives a shit. If you can't monitor your starched uniform for threads coming off of it, what the hell else are you going to get wrong in 6 months when you're handling a rifle next to somebody? It's that's a legitimate concern looking back on it now for me.
Yeah.
Right.
And the standards are almost impossible to meet.
They are.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
You fail. What do you do? Is it a stumbling block or motivation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it adding to your stress?
Also, another point of character exposed.
Yeah.
Okay, here. You're confronted with the opportunity to treat this as one thing or the other.
And
what
then
are you going to do?
Everything right, and I still fail you. Can you deal with it? Can you use that as motivation? Do you get pissed and mouth? Like, it's amazing.
Or you do everything right, the guy next to you does something wrong, now you all fail. Because it is a team evolution.
Yeah. Or maybe, let me just bring something up I saw recently where there's like some standards that have to be met within a particular organization because you're wearing a white shirt that says Proby on the front of it. And then it comes time to take the test. And you pass, and the guy next to you doesn't pass the test, or doesn't actually, he doesn't pass. Yeah, he doesn't fucking pass the test, physical test.
Also known as failing.
And yet both of you get member shirts. Now, I'd be pissed if I was the dude that passed,
right?
Because some motherfucker who failed actually got the same reward, quote unquote, that I got. But it also basically delegitimizes the whole thing, doesn't it? Or am I just
no? It does.
in a
one of my favorite.
Am
quotes,
I being like
no? One of my
critical,
favorite quotes
cynical,
is what you allow in your presence is your standard. So if the people who are sitting there overseeing that evolution, they can have all the standards written on the wall, and
I feel pretty good in this room right now.
Yeah,
actually.
So and standard number one is if you don't pass the physical test, you don't get fill in the blank, and then you stand there and two people fail, and one person passes, but they all get the shirt,
the
or
blank,
whatever it is.
or
You just need to take a marker to that standard that's written down, because it doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's written down. It matters what you do, and what you allow in your presence is your standard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it completely erodes the integrity of the organization, in my opinion, and the people administering the test.
And I think a common thread
Thank you
that you can
for
see amongst
making that very clear.
I don't even know what we're talking about, but that's just my default stance.
It is. Well, and a common thread that I think you can see amongst all of us in the room is that kind of needing to function on a specific standard. And there's a very analog view in that. You're either passing it or you're not.
And I'm guessing that everybody in this room, just making an assumption here, believes that it's a good thing to fail.
I think it's essential.
Well, and
I think if you don't fail, you're not doing anything that matters.
Yes.
Well,
you're not,
and you're not learning,
evolving.
Well, and Dud's not on camera or on mic, but what you said to me the other week in on the range about having a hard time because I hadn't been practicing because I didn't have time was, it's got to suck for me specifically to be over your shoulder shooting arrows. And yeah, it did. But do you remember me saying that I'm glad that you were the one that was over my shoulder? Because that's my personality, is I want somebody that's going to be able to ID everything that I'm doing wrong, because I don't want somebody sitting there patting me on the back
for fucking up
out of either
I actually wanted to hurt
out of
more.
ignorance that they don't know what to say, or because they just are unwilling to hurt my feelings.
To be critical,
To be critical.
Yeah.
I would rather somebody be critical because I'm not going to learn otherwise. It's not going to happen.
Well, if I haven't been practicing, guess who's the most aware of that? Right here, me.
Oh, yeah.
And so, if it gets to a point where, hey, let me check out your shooting. In my head, I'm like,
Oh shit.
this is going to suck. But I want it to suck so much that I don't put myself in that position.
That you
again.
don't not practice
Yeah.
in the future. Yeah.
And you know what drives me nuts about this scenario with the two people getting the shirt or whatever it may be? I wouldn't accept the shirt. If I knew that I failed, I would give it back and say, you know what? If you were going to give me this shirt, you can go fuck yourself because I actually don't want to be a part of this organization.
Exactly. In fact, that would be, for me, the indicator, like, oh, wow, sudden relaxation of standards because you want my monthly contribution, financial contribution so you can keep your fucking lights on.
Yeah.
I'm out because that's not interesting.
Yep.
And seeing
Or
that,
authentic.
seeing that at the end of Buds, being a Bud student, and then graduating SQT 6 months after that, you get your bird, but then you show up to the team and you're brand fucking new, and
Fresh
it doesn't
meat.
matter. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, congratulations, you know where the trash is. Make sure the beer's full in the fridge every Friday. Like, don't fuck that up.
I was in that cycle my entire career.
Yeah.
I did two platoons, and you're still a new guy. And I'm like, I'm
yeah,
going
you
to
are.
screen to go somewhere else.
Showed
up
time
over
to be
there.
new again.
Made it through. Hey, what's up, new guy? I'm like, oh, this is 7 years of this. Let's just continue.
Yeah.
Made it through that. Went to Buds. Oh, hey, what's up, new guy instructor to the staff. I'm like, oh my God.
It never ends.
Got switched over to becoming an officer. And the old, oh, hey, what's up, punk? I'm like, this is never going to end. But at the same time, I was like, yes.
But what a great, what a great way to.
No shit.
In retrospect,
Yeah.
it's great to live a life that forces that to happen.
There's no
because-
resting on your laurels. You either are leaning
can't.
forward on your toes,
Yes.
or you're getting passed by.
And if you
understand you're always new to somebody. It doesn't matter where you are.
And there's always somebody better. That was a critical portion
Absolutely.
of that as
This is one of my climbing mentors. I guess, let's see, third, and perhaps most important, this guy, John Bouchard. And I say most important climbing mentor because he was really, really pretty far down the road. I mean, he's the guy who went to Europe, saw paragliders, get dudes paragliding, bought one, came back, took it apart, figured out how to make them. And we talked about it on the first podcast, actually. He was the guy who developed the first elliptical wing. But, you know, based on, he's like, oh, I should read some books because I'm a smart guy. And like, oh, well, it would be better if the tips of the wing flew faster than the center. That would be a good thing, right? Anyway, so he said exactly that. Everyone's a geek to someone.
Yeah.
And there was one day I was out on my motorcycle and right and on a sort of mountain-ish road, a lot of corners, et cetera. And I was like riding. I was thinking, fuck, I'm really fucking railing this thing today. This is awesome. And
then you hit a bird.
Shit.
And oh no. And then some dude comes by me,
Yeah.
Cranking.
knee dragging.
And you probably
Kind of
felt like
thing.
you were in second gear.
And I just kind of pulled over and stopped and stood up and put the kickstand down and had a little moment of self-reflection. And later I was talking with him about it, and he said, that's what you do to people in the mountains.
That's what Dudley does to people shooting a bow. Like,
Well, and it's a great thing, and I know you can speak to the same thing. Coming from our background, we get to meet, be around, and be taught by some of the best in their field.
Yeah.
So often that you come away from being in the SEAL teams with the understanding that you're going to be a fucking new guy and not be the best in the world at anything, probably ever.
Ever. Yeah.
well, and also the understanding that if you come to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm the best at everything that I do, you need to retire because you're just not self-aware.
Yeah, take a step back.
Or you're not doing something new, right?
Or-
So you're not, then again, not evolving as a person and growing as a person.
Yeah.
And if you're at that point where you realize, and this is for me, when I decided I'm not going to train people anymore, is because like I'm not learning from this. I can certainly do this, and I can take money from this, but it's not helping me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not put
you can
into
profit from it. You won't benefit from it.
Yes, perfect.
So you have to talk. I know almost nothing about the SEAL team you went to, and I know there's some sensitivities around it. So describe it to whatever degree that you want to.
Just hold your breath and close your eyes,
Yeah.
and then I'll come back to
I
you
mean,
in 10 minutes.
I know you went to an SDV team, which I know almost. I've seen an SDV in person one time, and I immediately turned around and walked the other
It's like a
direction.
unicorn, but like evil.
Did I give you because I used to do some of the core value speeches, or like you sit down with the students, and people would ask me about SDVs, and I had one response. Did I give this one to your class? People say Instructor Stumpf.
Shit, I
What do you
don't
think
know.
about going to SDV?
Wait, no shit. That's how they address you?
Instructor Stumpf. Yeah,
Scott was an instructor there, so he probably gave the SDV talk because he came from there.
People just in the core values would ask me questions, and they'd say, Instructor Stumpf, what do you think about SDVs? And I say, if given a choice between SDVs and suicide, blow your brains out.
Yeah, because I think his talk to us when I got
I've
assigned there.
I've never been in one, so I have no idea, and I would tell the students that. But I just say it seems like you're underwater for a really long time, and I don't want to do that.
I mean, I'll put
you
it
make
this way.
your own choices.
I'll put it this way. In,
But
in 4.5 years, I accumulated 1,400 hours of dive time.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Just do some math.
Fuck.
What's the longest dive you've ever been on?
Like 15 hours,
That's not awesome.
I think. Out of 14 hours, that's wet, like dry to dry. I think I've been like on bag for like 12 hours or something.
I can't even describe how exhausting that is.
On bag.
I've lost like
awesome.
9 to 10 pounds on multiple enough dives where I don't know how many I lost that much weight.
So describe what an SDV is.
So an SDV is a submersible that can hold a few seals and deliver them from platforms.
But it's not watertight.
No. It's a wet submersible. So
Okay.
you're on scuba of some sort for whatever the time is that you need to do to perform the functions that you're doing.
So you're basically
Let me make that about as vague as possible.
okay. you're riding a steerable torpedo.
You're in the torpedo. You're not
Okay.
riding.
And think about this, too. From my understanding, the people up front are the only ones actually doing anything, right?
So I'm on camera, so I'll just point at myself. Yes, only the one doing anything.
Yeah.
We had an officer there. They are there.
Yeah.
For anybody listening, that
saying
used
things.
to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But
sorry,
not doing
Yeah,
things.
you know that we can do that job by ourselves.
No job can be done without the presence of an officer. I can say that having
Well,
been
and
one.
thankfully I had a chief sitting next to me. So
But what I'm trying to say is, so there's a separation, right? So there's somebody up there
yes, there
driving.
is.
Okay, wait.
We
Now
had mechanical components behind us.
Yeah.
It's a mechanical thing.
let me go back a little bit further because I'm guessing
Deeper.
these. Okay, let me go. No, we're not going to. You're going to have to go deep on this one. I'm just going to go further. I'm going to be like new guy. Okay, so I'm guessing that said submersible has limited range.
Yeah.
How does it get from wherever to close enough to be deployed? Like is it attached to a larger vehicle that's
can
moving
be.
around under the
You
water,
can-
or
You could describe it as a piggyback of sorts.
You can describe it as a piggyback.
kind of like the
or
space shuttle,
like a little
sitting
baby,
on
like
the
a little baby
seven-
parasite.
Yes.
It's on there. Like a lamprey.
If people are interested in SDVs, go to Google and put in
Yes.
seal delivery vehicle, and I don't know if the information's accurate, but it'll give you a better perspective.
I'm being so cagey because I have a whole bunch of NDAs and I'm just trying to be as vague as possible. But yes, go to Google, do a quick search on your own, and what you see may or may not be true, but there are a host of pictures online on how the thing functions and what it can or cannot attach to. It's a very interesting thing.
I wouldn't have chosen that term.
I didn't. I mean, I didn't choose to go there. I'm saying interesting because it's interesting as a thing. That
So the point I was
Still
getting to,
happens.
though, is I wanted to talk about the difference between what the people in front are doing and the people in back.
So I'm shivering, but I know where we're going.
Because you're looking at something,
They're
right?
shivering and they don't know where they are.
Aren't they like basically in an underwater box?
Yeah, you're in a coffin.
It's not cool.
No, it's cold.
It's not acceptable.
That sounds
Also true.
horrible.
I've heard of people,
It is horrible. I've been back there and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I'm in front. I don't like this.
I've heard of people like laminating magazines. Like what?
Watching movies,
I mean, are we talking catheters at this point? Let's go deep.
catheters. So yeah, over dick catheters. Oh yeah, Doug's got one.
Yeah.
Like over the dick catheters or diapers. We wore semi-dry wetsuits, which are 7 mil, so you could just piss yourself. It doesn't matter. It's a wet suit.
Is there a flow of water
There
in the suit?
can be.
Because pissing yourself in a suit that doesn't have a flow of water is not cool. I'm going to push back against that.
No. Well,
I
after
was actually talking about this day before yesterday with a good friend.
pissing yourself,
Actually, it was
wide awake.
specifically I was talking about shitting ourselves.
All right, if we're going to go here, I have a story.
because
Oh God, I've seen these stories.
we were I was with a mutual friend who's passed last year, and so I was talking with my friend Michael Kennedy about this, and about because sometimes looking back, you can't remember, you can't imagine. Okay, that actually happened, but if I'm describing it to you now, it will sound completely unrealistic. So I was on a pretty big peak in the Himalayas in the winter with a good friend named Jeff Lowe, and on the approach to this peak, we had gotten some kind of parasite. So a couple different choices of antibiotics in the first aid kit, whatever. So we choose doxycycline. It's a 10-day thing, but lo and behold, like day 2 of this course of antibiotics, the fucking weather gets good and the forecast is really good.
Time to climb.
So January 87, we fucking launch on a peak that we think is probably going to take it. I mean, I think we have 12 days of food and 15 days of fuel, something like that. Just 2 of us in the winter in the Himalayas, and it's that right there should sort of set the scene. So this antibiotic is not a very powerful antibiotic for this particular parasite, unfortunately. So it made them kind of sleepy.
They're just dormant.
They're just dormant. So
They're waiting.
Oh no, yeah, and they're just get angrier and angrier every day that they can't do their thing. So we're 9 days up this route. That morning, I start climbing off the belay off the anchors, and Jeff is belaying, and I'm just very few, maybe 10, 15 feet above him, and he goes, oh. And I look down, I'm like, dude, what's going on? And he goes,
He's having a moment.
He's having a moment. And so he shits himself.
Yep.
And I'm like, and he tells me, I'm like, oh man, what a drag. Must have been the freeze dried from last night. Or the freeze dried from the previous 8 nights, whatever. So I keep climbing. I get to the top of the pitch, and I'm just like, thank God it's not fucking me, and I'm like, set the anchors, and he starts coming up, and he's halfway up following this pitch, and I'm like, oh. And the same thing. So the deal is, you're like pretty high on a big peak in the Himalayas. We're a little over 21,000 feet at that point, and so the first time I shit myself, I hang off the anchors and
the first time.
I cut my underwear out. Okay, because that's not
the bottom of your shirt.
No, that has no value for me right now. It's just like keeping everything there, and it's all messy.
Diaper,
so
you can get rid of it.
Then get rid of it. Okay, so the next layer, however, is an insulating layer. So when I shit myself the second time, I cannot cut it out. And so Jeff gets up there, and we're both on this hanging belay, pretty high on the South Pillar of Nipsey, and we're like, look at each other, same thing, like, oh, and just explosive. It just horrible.
Double dragon.
No vomit.
No vomit.
No, just single orifice engagement, and so we start doing some math. We're like, okay, we're gonna fucking die. We're gonna
get
die.
Dehydrated.
We're gonna get dehydrated, and we don't have enough fuel to melt enough snow to stay hydrated. Nor do we have any more antibiotics in the first aid kits because we thought because that's down at base camp.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, we can see it, and the weather's still good. Everything's not perfect. I mean, we're not in a great situation, but we decided, okay, we got to go down.
Yeah,
which takes 2 days.
Oh God.
And we're still,
it's better than 9.
It's better than 9. It's still happening. So we're 9 up. It took 2 down. I think from that point it was 48 rappels to get down, and we're just so I can't even remember, but it's everywhere. I mean, it's like it's down the leg into the boot tops at this point, and.
You're just leaving your little slice of America with Nipsey.
No.
Why didn't you put your spare clothes on?
Fully yeah, why not? Because they were not with us. Our spare clothes didn't happen to be with us.
I'll put on my extra pants. Oh, those are there.
Exactly. So we finally get down, and we're like stumbling across the glacier. We're so fucking weak because we're having trouble any food is just kind of going right through.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who was in our base camp, one of the Sherpas. He's like, he sees, they've got a spotting scope and they know pretty much what's going on. So they come across, they run across the glacier with, 2 glasses and hot tea, right? And that's the thing. And the guy rolls up, I can't remember his name, but it was fucking hilarious. He rolls up and he looks at us, and then he's apparently, it was a little warmer. When everything's frozen, it doesn't smell bad.
Nope.
But then you're down lower elevation and things start, and he just like, oh fuck! Let's leave this teapot right here, and I'm keeping a good 20 feet or whatever. And somebody said, drop your packs, and they grabbed the packs and carried them back to base camp, and we just crawled out, and that was our kind of departure. So peeing in a wetsuit, to me, that just sounds like warm and glorious for like about a couple of
JV
minutes.
I mean, I've seen shitting in a wetsuit.
I have too. It's not.
I've seen
good.
the result of that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nasty.
It's on your back.
It's
high up.
everywhere. Because you think like, oh,
Yeah,
you're
but
already
but
a little wet.
You're wet.
And then you expel some more stuff, and it just decides to go everywhere.
It's like a duck pate as you're unzipping your wetsuit. It's terrible.
In the body condom that you're wearing.
So the whole thing about like, insulation that you use in the high mountains is, it works better. They do say warm when wet, about wool and some other sort of synthetic fabrics and that kind of thing, but that's not totally true.
Warm when wet, not warm when shit in.
You should keep it dry. It's better if it's dry.
Yes.
Yeah. It just means that it's not actually stealing heat from you when it gets wet. But still, everything's better when it's dry, and everything's better when it isn't covered in shit.
True.
Technical climbing question. How are you supposed to take a shit 40 pitches up?
Well, if in the mountains,
yes.
When you have so first thing, because you didn't ask about number one, so
I assume they'd happen relatively at the same time.
We'll do number one first.
Okay.
Which is, you need to have a zipper arrangement so that allows you to have a straight line. If you have a kink in the hose, when you put it back in, whatever didn't get past the kink is going down, is going to get your insulation wet. So the running joke was always 4 inches of insulation, 2 inches of dick, because it's cold, and obviously there's
enough.
You're trying to reach in, fish it out around the harness. It's a terrible experience.
It's cold out.
And no, there's just no, I'm not going out there.
Yeah.
Here, you can pull all you want, but I'm not leaving.
Yeah, it's blowing 20 miles an hour, and it's negative 10 out.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so
you just lean up against the wall or plant your feet and just...
Well, it depends. So because first you have to have access to the hole, right? So and so there's two schools of thought. One is the through the crotch zipper, so a vertical zipper that goes from the chest all the way through the crotch up to the tailbone. But that means you're pulling laterally and then also trying to, pull vertically to get your long underwear, whatever insulation you're wearing underneath, down. Pretty small hole. If it's a third world situation, you may or may not be on time. So I always preferred the sort of half moon zipper around the ass, which is separate from the vertical zipper, and so you sort of unzip, drop that. The main thing there is to pull that flap through so that nothing
doesn't get touched.
Doesn't get touched,
Mm-hmm.
but then you're operating with sort of a wider thing.
Window.
When you pull your bigger window, yeah. So you typically have a harness, which is where the leg loops are detachable from the waist belt. You'd still be attached in the front, but you could detach the back. And that way you can get like a really big window. You can hang off the waist belt from the anchors and then just let it rip, so to speak. And you want to get it done quick because it's definitely cold sometimes. If the wind is blowing 20 and it's minus 10 and there's a little bit of spin drift, you don't really want to do it, but sometimes it's got to be done.
Yeah, no,
and
you don't want that shit confetti everywhere.
No, and oftentimes because you're eating, you're like high altitude food, right? And it's reconstituted, freeze dried, whatever, or you're eating stuff with a pretty high fat content because that helps you stay warm. One situation in Chamonix when Scott and I did the first ascent of There Goes the Neighborhood, and we were a day late, and so the PGHM, the mountain rescue guys, came looking for us with a helicopter on the morning of we were supposed to be back the previous night. We were still up there, and they came by right about the time that both of us were expelling. So we're both hanging off the anchors on this thing, probably like 65-degree ice slope where we chopped a ledge to a 3-cheek ledge, I think we called it, because we got tired, and that meant one butt cheek was unhappy for someone, but we were hanging off the anchors at when the helicopter came, and it just both had explosive diarrhea.
So we're a common theme.
But it's and so they kind of came by, and we're like, ass out,
hi guys,
waving.
Oh god!
And they flew away, realizing that we were alive and that they could not erase that from the hard drive. I'm done. I'm done with the shit because.
I had to
It's all
ask
been
him.
expelled.
All right.
It has been expelled.
It
yeah.
has.
Yeah.
My stories weren't that good. It just involved a dry suit and Mexican food.
That sounds okay. Whoa. Was it all right? So this has always been a question of mine. So it's a dry suit. No water can get in.
Should get in.
Should get in. There's many ways you could sabotage yourself.
I've seen many wet dry suits.
That's the second topic. My topic is okay. I have gas inside. My body's creating gas.
Yep. Mm-hmm. This is where my story was actually going to begin.
Gas is a lot like water.
Yeah.
Do you just like make a balloon with enough Mexican food, or
All right,
what
so
is
I'll
it?
tell my story. In my first platoon in a galaxy far, far away, we were doing OTH, which is over the horizon, where you get in these boats and you drive to nowhere,
Right.
navigating, and then as soon as you can't see anything, you come back. And we were wearing our dry suits. And you put the dry suit on, you have clothing on underneath. And I used to go either, you jump off the pier, basically, and you can compress yourself into a ball and kind of pull the seal around your neck.
And that gets all the air out.
Expels all the air out. So a buddy of mine, this was on a Monday, guy in the platoon had gone hard in the paint, boozing, as we all did on days that ended in Y back then, and then got some suspect Mexican food. And
I'm sorry. I just had to go through the days of the week. Yeah. Okay.
You did that math correctly.
So we're transiting in this thing forever. And this is me. I might be messing the story up a little bit. This is him telling me about the story.
Okay.
And he basically said that he was just sitting there like the whole ride and just farting in his wetsuit or his dry suit and just farting in his dry suit and keeps going and going. And there was a point where he was going to need to, jump off the boat and they were going to swim in a little bit. And you're pretty buoyant with that dry suit because you can't get all the air out.
Yep.
But he said he jumped into the water and was basically like an Oompa Loompa because it was so puffy. So he went and grabbed his neck seal.
No. Do the wrist, man. Do the wrist.
So he went neck seal and immediately just started dry heaving and projectile vomiting and just.
So there is something about the high altitude, the one-piece high altitude suit. You've been out there forever, and you're starting to burn a little muscle mass, so you got the fucking serious ammonia thing going on. And and there's a weird bellows effect every time you move, and it's just like driving air up out of the neck of the suit and into your mouth, and you're just like, oh, I'm dying. Oh, I'm fucking dying. Oh, I'm dying. And then the parallel thing to you're just like, I'm in a dry suit and I feel like I'm gonna fart. I mean, you go to third world country, the greeting was always like, hey man, how you doing? I'm like, farting with confidence, because it's not always a thing. Like, man, I'm gonna pinch this one off because I don't
know what's happening
because it might be humid. Yeah. I don't know.
We've gone down a deep rabbit hole now.
It's quite.
Well,
I like it though.
30 feet of intestine generally. So we're gonna hit the
end.
So back to SDVs.
Yeah.
And the guys in the back doing nothing.
They do nothing.
Farting, obviously.
They
hang out
and
for a
hopefully, perhaps expelling the air through their wrist seal instead of the neck, because he did not enjoy that experience, or at least that's what he described to me.
Well, and we got to the point where we weren't using dry suits. We were using semi-dries for the stuff we were doing. And just speaking from my experience doing the stuff that we were doing, you can pretty much perform any function with a semi-dry wetsuit that's fit for you.
Yeah.
So we had individually sized suits. Everybody had one made specifically for them, just like you would have a ski racing suit made just for you.
You should
fit perfectly.
For most guys in the team, it's like, you're a double XL, go get that. For
this.
For your specific purpose, it needs to be custom.
Yeah, and we were wearing those suits, every other day for months on end. In some scenarios,
it's a problem.
It's
not awesome.
So, we weren't wearing dry suits.
Your skin must get so soft, though.
Yeah, buttery smooth.
Did you come? Yeah, talk to me about the pruny fingers you had coming out after a 14-hour dive.
Oh my God! So,
you don't just have
you just don't. It's a whole nother level of what can your brain function through. I've been on the edge of hypothermia a number of times, and it's compounded by being dehydrated because you're not thinking about, nor are you sitting there drinking water.
You're just in water.
Underwater.
Yeah.
Well, and it's salt water.
Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink, as they say.
It's for real.
And is the salt pulling moisture out of your body?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's trying to equalize.
So it's yanking water out. So you get out of that. You get out after a long, long dive, and you're going to piss that's scotch colored. That's just reality.
I would quit.
If you're pissing.
I
At
would
all.
definitely
Like, if
quit.
at that point, if you can even piss anymore.
Yeah, when it's like molasses on the way out, it's also
I mean,
not comfortable.
No.
When it's
and for a frame of reference,
that.
the amount of weight that we were losing on those dives is a gallon of milk
Yeah.
for volume. Think
That's
about that
7
coming
pounds.
out of your body. You know, that's a regular thing for what was going on.
so a larger guy would be less impacted by that than a smaller guy.
Probably, yeah. But then you run into this reality, which is the thinner and leaner you are, the lower propensity you have to get a dive injury. So the leaner the body, the less adipose tissue you have
For the oxygen.
for all the gases to get into.
Yep.
So adipose tissue has an easier time retaining gas. So if you are thin and lean, which we were running around like triathletes at the team, and they told us to do this and not drinking before, like multiple days before dives, you run a lower risk of getting a dive injury. Because the chances of us getting a dive injury doing the profiles we were doing was hyper high. And I'm talking like 1 in 4.
So you guys were at the limits of the dive
We were
tables.
literally at the limits. We were writing some of the newer tables.
It's also not awesome.
No, not. And I've described this to some EOD techs and some friends that are in other programs, and they're like, man, I can't believe they let humans do that. Because it's scary and it's, just,
The military-
it's outside of the realm of what you think would be manageable.
So
but the
therefore-
reality is it had to happen.
Well, and the perfect place to test this is, of course, a volunteer force military
Why, yes.
On
People who've signed
on a bunch
yes,
of type
papers.
A guys that are willing to just
that
do
won't
a
say
thing.
no until they cannot say no, and
Because
when they get to
your
that
no
point,
is
they make the line on the table and say, "Don't go past this."
yeah. Now, coming
Go right up to being able to say no,
yeah.
or to
Being able
being
to not
unable
say no.
to being unable to say no. Pull back 2 or 3 feet, and then we'll draw the line there.
But as a place to be in retrospect, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Because I had zero idea of what SDV was, and I'm glad that that's a thing, that there's not a lot of information out there. You know, there aren't books and movies and all sorts of stuff. It's a really rad place, and it's the last place that the SEAL teams are doing the frogman shit. You know, I got to lock in and out of submarines. I got to do all sorts of just weird crap that harkens back to what the UDT teams were doing recovering, you know, Apollo spacecrafts. Like, we were getting to do some really experimental stuff, and I still got to go to Afghanistan.
Yep.
I still got to do the same shit that everybody else was doing.
Yeah, I have an immense amount of respect. I mean, obviously, I kid about it, but an immense amount of respect for people who, because you guys are basically putting your balls on a table, and a guy would come out with a sledgehammer, and you're like, yes, again.
Do it again. Thank you, sir.
And like I said, I would have just quit. Like, what the stuff you guys were doing was extremely hard.
And when I showed up, guys at the team, I'll paraphrhrase what they said, but essentially they joked and said, yeah, so we don't really haze anybody here. The team does it enough.
The job does that on its own.
Sitting in this thing in the dark. And if you
Nice.
think that you're not claustrophobic, I have a surprise for you. I'll snake a regulator into a cruise box, and we'll show you how claustrophobia really works.
Were you and I talking about locking out of torpedo tubes? That was
Yeah.
you and I, right?
Oh, yeah.
We were telling Evan, the Black Rifle CEO.
Yeah.
It's just like,
He was describing that, so the first person goes into a torpedo tube.
Barclay was there too.
Barclay was telling us this.
Yeah.
Okay.
First
And
person
I was
goes in,
laughing because I'd done it.
feet first, and then your diving gear gets shoved into your face. Then another set of diving gear gets shoved in, and another human being comes in face first. Door closes. You can imagine the amount of light that's in this room.
No, I can't, because I believe it's none.
Yes, 0. Exactly and precisely 0.
Big goose egg.
And your entire life is the air or oxygen source
Yeah.
coming out of that regulator, while somebody in an environment that's warm and cozy is metering the pressure in the tube, flooding it, metering the pressure, opening the door, and then the guy facing out just pushes you out.
Well, and here's the best part is...
Can you even imagine that? Because I cannot.
Wait,
I would not want to do that.
let me mentally make this worse for you. So you're coming at this from the idea of, oh, that's really shitty. And it is. And it's terrifying. But imagine it from the perspective of, and I've done this, sitting in one of those tubes after 5 years of doing it, knowing, man, man, I've had this gear fail on me. The scuba gear that's in your mouth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now we've just added a layer of complexity to this scenario where I'm sitting here like, oh, and I could have the dive rig just fail while they're flooding it and changing the pressure, because that takes time, and now you have to buddy breathe.
Do they smash the red button and you go out like a torpedo?
I don't know.
Damn it!
I've never seen the button.
That would be sweet.
I've
They
only
like
received
ejected you
the
out.
button.
Yeah.
So there's
Been on the receiving end of these.
There's actually a type of snow cave that we would dig in the mountains, which is called the torpedo tube.
Ooh.
Because, so imagine you're sort of got snow continuously running down a very steep face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too steep to accumulate deep snow. Let's say there's like a rock face and you can get like...
So you have like some inches of...
3 or 4 feet maybe, but that means that you dig straight back into the slope until you hit rock, and then you turn sideways and you dig a big tube.
Like a gopher.
Exactly. So I'm about to describe like my worst fucking climbing nightmare. This is where I need to have my face by the door or I will fucking freak out and we'll all die because I have eyes. So, yeah. So I could like
look, I can see the eyes right there.
Oh no, they're bigger than. So dig straight in, hit the rock, turn right or left or whatever, and you dig the tube, and then the least claustrophobic guy goes to the back,
to the deep recesses of the tube.
Exactly, and so he'll be feet at the end of the tube and head forward, and then if you're like a team of 3, for example, then the other next guy gets in. He might put his feet in the first guy's face, and then the last guy comes in and he might put his feet. So now block the door because you want it to be warm in the cave, and you can't have any air circulating. And the guy closest to the door figures out how to get out of his clothes into his sleeping bag, get the stove out, light the stove, start melting snow. And now you're like having this whole mechanical issue of, okay, there's the stove and he's melting snow and he's like, filling water bottles and passing them back or making the soup or the dinner or whatever it is. And one night I was in a cave with Barry Blanchard down, in the Canadian Rockies, and we were trying to climb this new route. And we got up, we got some anchors in the rock because you want to stay tied in. At this
slides.
Because it could all just go away. So everything is always sort of tied in. You can get a little bit lackadaisical and then things usually go bad. But so you want to stay tied in, ideally to the rock. So we had some pretty good anchors in the rock and this cave, and it just kept snowing all night. And so there's 2,500 feet of face above us, which is accumulating all the snow, and like it's coming down. And at some point in the night for me, it got like the air in the cave got too still. And I started freaking out. I'm like, oh, fuck.
I don't want to be in here.
So you always have a shovel in the cave. Like, nothing is ever outside. Everything is, and I sleep with a fucking shovel in my hand. If I'm in a tent, I sleep with a knife in my hand. Because the thing is...
Yeah, you're not claustrophobic at all.
Oh, fuck no. If a tank is buried by, new fallen snow or avalanche, you need to have a knife to cut your way out, because otherwise you're not getting out. So... so there's always like in one pocket there's a knife, there's a lighter, there's been in my hand on a fucking shovel if I'm in a snow cave, because I am not good with any of this shit. And so the air got really still in the cave, and I just like woke up and I'm like, oh fuck. And so I go to the entrance of the cave and I start digging, and I'm like, oh shit. Like I dig 2 or 3 feet and there's still more snow, and I keep going out the tunnel that had been the door, and 12 feet of snow had accumulated coming down this face. And now I'm thinking like, okay, we're fine. Now that we're here, we're going to have to get down tomorrow. And we have dug a snow cave in what has become the perfect
avalanche.
Exactly. The slope had accumulated. So, with all the snow. So the next morning, and Barry's just like,
gives no shit.
She gives nothing. I'm just like vibrating enough for both of us.
It's like, well, we're here already.
And so now I'm sleeping out by the new door. I give myself a little slack on
next
the
door.
like. And
Did you give him a heads up on the new door, or you just?
oh no, I'm just like because he's snoring. Like, why wake the guy? I need him to be fully cognizant in the morning. I need him to get a good night's sleep. I can afford to freak out because he's getting a good night's sleep and he's going to take care of shit. And so next morning, it gets light, and I'm like, Barry, we got to get the fuck out of here, man, because there's no way we're going up. And so he's like, wow, that was really great. Let's have some coffee. And, we eat a little whatever. And we go, dig a little bit more. He comes out. He looks out of the cave. And he's like, oh, man, this is really bad. I go, yeah, it's been bad for a while, actually. You were asleep while
I've been
getting
monitoring
bad.
it the whole night.
Exactly. I've been closely monitoring inch by inch, motherfucker. Anyway, so... We pack everything and we get ready to go down. We're like, okay, we're gonna have to. We'll rappel off these anchors that are in the rock first, and we'll see what happens. And I'd given myself a whole bunch of slack in the rope, and we were actually testing that time. Blue Water had made some new ropes. I had this idea to make them. We'll use 2, but we'll make each one smaller. And so we had these 7.8 mil ropes, which were pretty light at the time, but a 7.8 mil rope also. Yeah. At that time, nobody was really climbing on anything that was smaller than 9, or 8.8. And so Barry had this in the back of his mind when he pulled on the ropes to free them from the snow, and the whole slope cut loose. And so Barry's watching me as I've got all this slack in the rope, and I just disappear out of eyesight. As the avalanche goes away from him, he loads the anchors that are in the rock, and they hold, and I just disappear. And he's like, "Holy fuck, those ropes were too light. They just broke." And then anyway, they didn't. I just had 15 feet of slack, and so I went 15 feet, came up hard on the rope, and the avalanche went down. And then Barry was just standing there. He saw me stopped. But everything had run to the hardest layer of snow. So there was probably a 8 or 10 foot crown at the top of this slab that went. And then he just watched it. The crack propagated all around the cirque. And it was a gigantic avalanche. I mean, went down, it was taking out trees. Oh, yeah. 500 feet down when it had gathered enough speed. Or it finally, had hit that zone. And like, oh, well, I guess we're safe now. Because everything's avalanche, and so now it's down to a hard, surface sort of bed, and we, wrapped as far as the ropes, pulled the ropes from those anchors, and continued down, and the debris pile. It was fucking Dresden. I mean, it was totally insane.
Isn't it like
but it all started with claustrophobia. Oh god!
Aren't those slides when they are big enough and they get enough speed? Isn't the leading edge have wind associated with the front that can just knock you off your feet before the snow even gets there?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's been clocked the air blast ahead of the moving snow have been clocked at over 200 miles an hour.
Damn.
And so there, you're not just getting moved. You're
getting tossed.
You would get ejected. Yeah, for sure.
You need a wingsuit.
I don't think you're going to nail that start, but
it's worth a try.
And I've never been hit, by the leading that air blast ever. I've been caught in several avalanches.
I feel like most people that have been hit by that probably aren't here to tell.
I don't think they are. Yeah, because that's the kind of thing that that distorts and bends steel structures. I mean,
that's if the full mountain slide.
Yeah. I mean, it's to see the aftermath of something like that is
impressive.
Like fucking Mother Nature.
Just to hear that had to have been impressive. The noise associated with that.
Fuck. No, that's sort of like sphincter loosening noise,
and also tightening simultaneously.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's tightening after everything. And it's just like, I mean,
after you lose weight so you can run.
Yeah. Well, no, there's certain noises like that in the mountains that are. I mean, have you ever been hit by lightning or been close?
Oh yeah.
I feel like I've been close. I've definitely not been hit, but I've say under a mile for sure.
Oh, under a mile.
Yes.
You're
going to say under. Listen, it was an emotional experience.
Yeah.
I've had it 50 feet.
Okay.
It's an interesting sound.
I had the guy standing next to me get hit.
That's fun. So we have a winner.
So
what
just in
happened to him?
proximity. Well, it's funny that you ask.
What powers does he have now?
I think he runs a gas station. But yeah, there. I'll go. We'll start with that one because the entertaining, the short version, the entertaining one is we're at, like, let's see, 1,200 feet below the summit of Nanga Parbat, which is 8,125 meters. So it's 26.5 or something like that. So we're somewhere over 25,000 feet on this peak, and we get caught by the storm. And this is back in the point where I wasn't wearing a helmet in the mountains because it's just not cool. You know, you look way cooler in a headband.
Well, headband and walkband.
Exactly.
That's the best way to go.
It's the best way to go. But I did have a baseball hat because it had a visor on it, and that shielded the vent on my goggles, and kept that from getting packed up, and so they wouldn't get fogged. So this brim on this hat, but also there's a metal button in the center of most baseball hats. So we're up there.
I've worn many under helmets,
and like we're in this storm, and it's a thunderstorm. It's full on thunderstorm, and the sound which is going. Like, because the electricity is like a sort of like a Jacob's ladder kind of thing, and it's running.
So hold on a second. You're in the storm.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time, people experience this. They're on the ground.
Yeah.
And you're
actually
looking at it.
in
high enough
storm.
elevation that it's happening there.
Like airliner height.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a storm that you would go through and feel the turbulence in.
Yeah. Most people experience these things from thousands of feet below,
Mark was
and they
outside.
just see it. Yeah,
Below it, and we're on the outside the air, I guess. But and so this like sound, and I think they called it St. Elmo's fire, and it's like, and you could see the electricity like moving from rock to rock, and nothing. And every time it accumulated enough energy, and the thunder cracked, it was. This is when I say sphincter opening. That's full on right there. That's like bowel sort of like dilate. I mean, it's just horrendous.
Perfect.
But Barry's looking at me, and I'm just slapping my head, and we're up high enough that I mean, I was fairly well acclimatized, but there is some altitude related lack of clarity in one's mind, and I think I'm getting stung by bees. I'm like at over 25,000 feet in the fucking Himalayas, and I think I'm getting stung by bees. So I'm just slapping my head, like trying to get the bees off of me because there's like the electricity's accumulating in that metal button and just zapping my brain. And Barry's just like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" I'm like, "There's bees. He goes, "Dude, hat, button, electricity." Oh, fuck! What an idiot I am. And that event actually went downhill from there, unfortunately. But when my friend Gary Baldwin got hit by lightning on Mount Rainier, I was with we were with Gary, Mike Long, and one of I want to say Peter Larson is the other guy that was with us. And we had tried to ski. We went up to Camp Muir trying to ski down, and got caught by this thunderstorm. So we're watching the lightning get closer and closer, and we're running like motherfucker. We'd ski to the end of the snow, and
it's time to leave.
And we're carrying the skis down through the Panorama Point or something, trying to get back to Paradise. And the lightning's getting closer and closer, and it's just louder and louder and louder. And it's like, I've been to a few rock concerts, and this is louder than any of those. I mean, I don't know what Neil Young thinks he's about, playing the loudest rock concert ever. Fuck that guy. This is way louder, and we just realized, like, okay, it's going to happen. And the next lightning strike hits, and Peter and Mike are further back. They're carrying their skis over their shoulders.
Oh no!
So they both get burns on their hands from the metal edges and on their necks from where the electricity goes to the metal edge of the skis. Because they were just on the periphery. The lightning bolt hits basically between them and Gary, and I'm in front of Gary. Gary gets launched in the air, and it's loud as fuck. That's I don't think before or since could account for the tinnitus that I have.
What?
Still to this day. Yeah. No, it's just I'm not deaf. It's just a ringing sound all the time, Trevor.
It's just ringing all the time.
So Gary gets launched in the air, 10, 12 feet, whatever, lands on the rocks and starts fucking running, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I had like taken my pack off, which had a metal frame in it, like gotten rid of everything metal, and I had like felt it, but not any electricity. Like I had no damage of any kind. But he's running down and to the right, which leads to the Nisqually Glacier, which could not be a great place to go running. And so I start chasing him. I think, oh fuck, he zapped his brain, and I got to like tackle him and stop him before anything bad happens. And I'm trying to catch up. I'm running behind him, and I'm trying to catch up. And he's shouting, he's fucking screaming. And I get close enough to hear what he's saying, and then I just stopped running because he's running along. He's like, "I've been hit by lightning. I've been hit by lightning. I'm alive. I'm alive."
He was stoked.
He was so fucking stoked. So we eventually get. I just like, okay, he's fine. Apparently,
He's fine. He's just crazy.
we get down to Paradise and go to the ranger station. We're like, his foot's all fucked up. We might want to look at it. And so what had happened? Since the lightning had hit actually didn't hit him. It didn't go through him. It was a ground strike right next to him. And so it had run along the steel shank of his boot. It'd gone in at the ball. It was a 3/4 shank boot, Reichley Rotundo, as I recall. And so it'd gone in the front, run along the steel shank, and blew out the back. And so the whole back of his leather boot is torn open. And these are like double-stitched, thick leather boots.
Yeah.
A fucking hole burned through both socks.
Whoa.
And so then he became part of this sort of some kind of medical experiment afterwards because he had a microwave, no surface damage, but his foot was microwaved, essentially.
The inside.
The inside. And he did full recovery and everything, but it was this like streak microwave burn, so you could see the electricity went in here, went out here, and everything in between is cooked.
Whoa.
Wow.
And it was, I have more, I've been in the Midwest a few times when there's been those weird storms and there's a lot of lightning and like wind and the clouds turn green. And I am the scaredest motherfucker in the Midwest at that point.
I know what that shit
because
does.
I know what fucking happens. Not everybody goes, I'm alive afterwards, and I don't really
Holy
want
cow,
to be.
man.
Oh, I imagine.
They'll be seeing it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like they're holding anything metal if they have a bow out there.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you're okay if you're on flat ground, it's just like, okay, don't be the tall guy.
Lay down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get rid of, and that's like in the mountains a lot of times. Like if you'd be caught by a storm, you've got this whole entire rack of metal hardware. You've got all the shit. You basically need to tie it to the end of the rope and lower it away from you.
As far as humanly
possible. Yeah.
So it doesn't work like in Caddyshack where you just point the golf club at the sky.
The hard stuff's not going to come down for another hour or so, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to say at that point?
You would never do this to me.
Man, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, no thanks.
I can't imagine fucking being a torpedo a real torpedo tube.
I know. So how did you end your career?
So I ended my career by heading to the parachute team. So the war at the time, the direction it was going was slowing down to a tempo that I felt like I wasn't pulling my skill set away from the teams. So I could go ahead and make my way to the parachute team because I had an interest in skydiving. I enjoyed skydiving a lot, and that actually
how much jumping had you done prior to that with your particular?
I think I showed up to the parachute team with 400 or 500 jumps,
Which is a lot for a parachute team.
Yeah.
Wow.
Most
Okay.
military jumpers after 10 years, I would say, would have maybe 100 jumps.
maybe. Yeah. And I had a few hundred base jumps at that point too.
They don't jump that much. It's an ancillary skill set.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just it was a hobby for me. It was
Okay.
the hobby that I like to do. SDV happened to do a lot of jumping. We jumped more than I think any team except
East Coast
you guys
yep.
at Bob Beach. And
So Andy, were you base jumping while you were still in, or is that something that came later?
Post.
Okay.
Actually, after I put Trevor through buds, I don't remember him. I mean, I saw hundreds of students.
Yeah.
We reconnected when he was at the parachute
just
team.
an average sized white guy, so easy to forget.
Well, you guys see 8 instructors. I see 8 classes of 80 students.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
But we reconnected when he was at the parachute team, and I was towards the tail end, getting ready to get out, and I augmented the team for a year, and that's how we reconnected.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I ended up going there based on the suggestion of Tim IG.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey, you like to skydive? There's an opening there. I heard there's an opening. Go for it. Go try out. And that ended up being an incredibly awesome opportunity in a couple ways. One that I didn't expect, which was it made the transition into non-military life seamless.
Well, you were interfacing with civilian life on a daily basis.
And it was full on
And also
big boy
getting
rules.
some input that you were accustomed to.
Yeah.
Let's say, because I would imagine like getting out after. I mean, I just know from having stopped climbing, sort of cold turkey, but I imagine getting out of the military after having certain experiences and becoming accustomed to them, a certain amount of stimulus, that all of a sudden, if everything just goes quiet.
And the tempo, I'm still dealing with not having.
Me too. It's been 5 years. I mean, I don't know. So I replace it with things.
Yeah.
Like
so
what I do, I try to learn new stuff. I go find a different hobby. My wife,
you joked like, oh, we're on tour. But
yeah.
That's like, we're so used to being gone 200 days a year that you sit around for a couple weeks, and you're not sitting around. You're just not going somewhere for a couple weeks, and it doesn't feel right.
For me, it's not the tempo of the travel. It's the tempo of the experience and diversity of experience.
Yeah.
Because I get a lot of them at home. But, I mean, I don't mind being on the road. I've been out a little bit longer than you, and I've spent far too much time on the road. But for me, it's that diversity of experience, because we hit these training blocks. 2 weeks of diving, 2 weeks of jumping, 2 weeks of land warfare, 2 weeks. You're like, dude, this is awesome.
Well, and I don't necessarily mean I just want to be living out of a hotel room. I mean,
I know what you mean.
They're kind of they're connected.
Yes.
You have these diverse experiences. Often it makes you travel.
Yep.
And that's what I'm used to doing, and that's what I like doing, and that's what I was doing at the jump team even.
I mean, I was actually thinking about this, Trevor, that since, sort of we've known each other, like there's the dog sled trip, and then
that was so fun.
Came back, and then you're out building a bow and
hunting
hogs. And
we have like 3 other hunts on the calendar this year. I mean, it's...
Oh, yeah.
It racks and stack with you. I'm sure you're doing jumping in between. Like there's all sorts of other projects.
Because it'll start getting less snowy down where those
whatever's going on
red
here.
cliffs are. Yeah, exactly. Way less interesting. We've got some books to pack and ship out. It's
I'm getting really good at packing priority envelopes. So
hey man, I do it every day at the house. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
No, it's cool. I'm glad you guys linked up. We were talking about this before.
Took a while.
Yeah, well, you had to move here first. I'm coming to you.
Actually, not really, because we tried
during Turkey Boogie.
During the
did you guys?
Which I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's a thing.
Other than
when you got to laugh because you're like, oh yeah, you're gonna be down there from I'll be here from this date to this date. Here's my phone number. Probably won't be able to reach me. Here's the radio channel I'm going to be on.
Yeah, the CB channel, which we talked about in the little podcast we recorded, which I just laughed because that's an Alaska thing. Like I just had the flashback to hey, all communication in the Alps, they actually have modern radios that work.
Yeah.
Where in Alaska it's fucking CB radio still. It's just like, oh yeah, well the guard channel for the the aircraft is this, and the then
there aren't that many places that you go where you have to have a radio that's getting monitored.
Yeah.
And it's just a frank reality where I don't care if you're 3 miles from the road, but there are spots in Moab and there are spots in Alaska, there are spots in BC where you can put yourself in a deep, dark hole.
Yep.
And nobody will find you.
Yeah.
I mean, these Spanish dudes that we ended up rescuing in '95, the infamous rescue that where we had the highest landing ever, still to this date, actually, of a Chinook helicopter.
They must have done this before.
Yeah, exactly. But these Spanish dudes, they didn't have a CB radio. The Park Service recommends it, and they're just, we have a radio. And they're, language issue. They didn't know that like FM, AM, that's a different deal. And so they only had an FM radio, and the only reason that the Park Service knew there was a fucking problem is because somebody somewhere, and not even anywhere, like they're like shouting for help on this radio, and it's just going out into space in Alaska somewhere, and somebody happened to be monitoring like hundreds of miles away.
Something like caught on a repeater.
Exactly.
No way.
Yeah, and these guys are speaking Spanish, and this dude not only intercepted the transmission by accident, but also spoke Spanish. Realized these guys who were in trouble, called the Park Service and said, hey, I think you guys got a problem.
And how lucky are they that you guys were there, ready to rock and roll, already acclimatized? Like, there was so many things that came to play there where those dudes were in a fatal scenario.
Yeah. And got lucky.
And the fact that some of them, that 2 of them got lucky.
Yeah, 2 of them got lucky.
Blind luck.
Yeah.
Total
blind luck.
But, often it's better to be lucky than good.
Well, how about sometimes? I'd rather be good than lucky more days than not.
I'd rather be both.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I constantly say I want to be an asset, not a liability, and that's responding to I can't deal with luck. I can't mitigate luck, and I can't mitigate some things that.
But I can be the
fall
dude that
under
has a
luck.
means of communication
But I can
that
be
can
that
actually
guy.
influence the outcome of the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, those poor fuckers, they were, yes, many points aligned for those. I hope they've.
Oh yeah, they had the Swiss cheese model all figured out.
Yeah.
It certainly
They
sounds
shot
like
the
it.
arrow right through that thing,
That's insane, man.
and good for them.
I suppose.
But that's
it's a great story.
But we kind of linked up over the whole or we tried. I'm like, oh, CB
like
channel,
2 or 3
whatever. And I'm
times.
like out at the end of the Mineral Bottom Road, before you go down the hill in Moab, and there's dudes like there's tarps everywhere laid out, and dudes packing fucking
Total shit
parachutes.
show this year.
Yeah.
It was and Selena and I rolled up, and she was going to go for a run. She's like, and I was going to ride, and I get out there, and I'm like, I wonder if Thompson Parasports is out. Like, I don't even know if I knew your real name at that point. Like, I wonder if IG Handle Thompson is out here, because I'm looking around, and then I'm like, there's a lot of dudes, and some of them look competent, and it seems a little bit like a club that you don't just like walk up and start chatting to them anyway. And I was like, and it was sundown was coming, so I needed to get on my roll, and then we got and then kind of got back up, and then Selena got back before me. She was sitting there and watched the whole thing, because there's always
Entertainment.
there's always entertainment. Well, no, whenever we go out to do something, I don't know if you know this, but like a post-exercise beer actually spikes blood sugar better than most other sort of recovery beverages, so that's always in the car. So she's like,
marathon beer, it's a thing.
It's a thing, yeah. And so she was there watching this whole thing. She's like, what the fuck is going on? And but she'd seen, heard like the
Crack of the keys.
yeah, because they were.
It was nonstop.
It was
I bet.
And
fucking
I
nonstop.
was staying at the airport or at the airstrip at the bottom of Mineral Bottom all day, every day.
Just
Oh my Lord.
yeah.
And I've been going to Turkey Boogie for 7-8 years now. And man, it is getting wild.
So
There's
there
a
was
lot of people.
There was one thing. I was riding down, and I rode down to the bottom of the hill, and then waited for Selena to come down, because I was like, check this out. And so there was an aircraft that flew over. Obviously, a bunch of people jumped out, and then I figured, okay, somebody had talked to somebody, because we're gonna free fall, and we're gonna open, and we're gonna fly by the exit, and when we fly by the exit, the other guys are gonna jump. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay, this is fairly coordinated.
It's a thing.
I guess it's a thing, and there's probably, I don't know, there's at least $27,000 worth of GoPros involved.
There is
If not
competency.
50.
There is competency happening there.
Oh, no shit. No, to see that, like, okay, they exit at a certain point, they and fly to this point, and then they open, and then they fly some more, and then some other people start flying at a slower speed.
There's some people out there pushing the leading edge, man. Again,
There's some
innovation
really cool
and evolution
shit happening.
Yeah.
And there's also some really scary shit happening.
I think on the front leading edge, those
Tree
go hand in
exits,
hand.
for example.
Yeah.
That was pretty gnarly.
No, actually, let's say I think the tree landing was a bit more gnarly than the tree exit that I saw recently.
You can speak more to that world than I can, Trevor. You're more connected to that than I am.
Yeah. It's I've always been, and I don't think I'll ever change my point of view, in so much that I believe in the right for people that are base jumping to perform that activity how they want to perform it.
Yes.
There is no governing body. There is no governing body yet. Maybe I should rephrase. It will probably happen at some point, but
I defy you to wrangle that shit,
And
government motherfuckers.
and so do and I defy anybody to wrangle it, but
yeah,
it's a lot like, I bet that climbers in the late 60s and 70s were like, this is never going to be controlled. We're so far outside the box, like we're cowboys. And I feel as though we, as base jumpers, are operating inside of this area that's much like climbing sounds like it was
in that
around
era.
that era.
And I'll say point taken, because I think you're right.
There are governing bodies that now are involved in a lot of those aspects.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with paragliding also. Paragliding, I'm sure those people were initially saying to themselves, we're going to have the air to ourselves forever. We can do whatever we want. We're not harming anybody. And now there are so many ratings and insurance, all sorts of stuff involved.
Well, if you think about it, look at Lauterbrunnen.
It's happening.
That's what I'm saying. There's the Swiss Base Association. There's I don't know if they're written down anywhere, but there's a code of conduct where you should land, where you shouldn't. So there's the beginnings of it already.
It's happening, and frankly, I'm glad that I've been involved in it at the time that I am, because it's interesting to be around. It's fun to do.
Yeah,
it's a little terrifying to watch.
Yeah,
and to be part of, but it's also exceptionally gratifying to be involved in an activity that is so personally, responsibly driven.
Yeah.
You are the start and the finish of the activity.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever the outcome is, you are solely responsible.
And I think a lot like...
The jump is optional, the landing is not.
That's what resonated to me reading essays from Kiss or Kill, some of the solo essays.
Mm-hmm.
As a base jumper, I read a few of them and said to myself, I get it. I understood. Now there's a truncation in time there for base jumping, where we're performing an action that takes 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the canopy ride and a couple other factors. But you are hiking and you're doing all the other pieces that are involved. So ostensibly, you could be performing something that takes 6 hours to finish.
Actually, Andy and I
headspace is there.
Talked about the time difference.
The jump is microscopic in comparison to the investment of time.
But you are putting your brain in that space for that entire period, especially if you've been doing it for long enough. Because, I've climbed, and I understand where that is. And with base jumping, it's the same way. The impact of performing the function incorrectly.
Yeah.
The result could be fatal.
Yeah. But the first time I went to the Verdon to go climbing.
Gorgeous place.
Beautiful.
Oh, man. Jumping there's great.
Landing there's less great.
True.
Filmed that landing. I believe that was the first time I ever saw Dominique Glez wear knee pads, like hard shell knee pads.
Yeah, I can see
like
that.
Ankle braces.
Anybody listening, the landing area at Verdun is about the size of a goat path with golf ball to baseball sized rocks.
Yeah, this was probably prior to when
30-degree slope.
He landed in the creek bottom.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, even worse.
Yeah, so the rocks were bigger. Yeah, it was fucked up. But what I realized at that point, because when you go climbing in the Verdun, you drive to the top, and then you wrap in, pull the ropes, so like four rappels to get to the bottom, pull the ropes all the way. And
because the only other way is that 2 mile hike, like way out the bottom.
Oh no, it may be even further, but
it's a long ways.
But it's a long ways, and so you go in top down, which gives you no time to adapt psychologically to what you're about to do. Whereas when you're coming from the bottom, like you're processing. Like every step is an incremental sort of adaptation, or allows you the time to actually get used to the more vertical terrain.
You go through the mental process.
Exactly. So the activity is going to get harder. It's going to get more dangerous. You're et cetera. But you're like approaching it in this sort of very slow and in a way that's easy-ish for the mind to assimilate. Whereas going in from the top down, it freaked me the fuck out. Like just going from totally flat ground, you wrap off the guardrail at the fucking overlook or whatever, and it's dead vertical, and then it's whatever it is, it's 1,000+ feet to the river.
Yeah, it's about 1,000 feet down to the river.
And that, like the fact that there's no time to adapt slowly in a cadence that I was used to. It made everything harder.
Yeah, and I think that the accessibility of some of that stuff leads to people putting themselves in scenarios that they can't get themselves out of.
Let's just say there are certain people who shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
but because they can drive there.
But it's it happens in a lot of, call it extreme sports, adventure sports.
Yeah.
Chamonix is a great example.
The accessibility of the cable car.
Accessibility of the cable car for paragliders, speed flyers, wingsuit base jumpers, climbers, skiers. There have been an exorbitant amount of fatalities per the volume of traffic in comparison to other places of similar difficulty.
Yeah.
By volume, they're not gaining the amount of consequential, like fatal action and result because the people that are willing to work to get there understand what's happening and they have to work to get there.
But also because of the accessibility, you get that sort of groupthink mentality. It's like, well, all these other people are here doing
The
it, so it must
mentality is a real
must
thing.
be safe.
You
Well,
lower
and
the barrier to entry enough, you might have some issues in the long run.
I've actually been on an odd side of that lemming piece where I've had a discussion with a friend on a base jump. The weather was marginal, not bad. But there was a group of people that we had taken to that exit point, and we had a talk, the two of us and one or two other guys, and we decided we are going to walk down because if we jump, we will probably be okay because we can mitigate our emotional state and we have an understanding
And
of
you have
what's
enough
required
experience
to figure it out.
to handle this marginal conditions.
But chances are somebody behind us doesn't. And they'll think, oh, it's okay because.
Yeah.
And that was a very weird scenario to be in for me because that happened a lot faster than I really thought it would. Base jumping is a timeline that operates on a timeline that is so quick because people get in and get out and get hurt or get killed.
I think we talked about this briefly the first time you and I sat down, and I was talking about it in terms of jumping with your mentors.
Yeah.
It's one of the most dangerous things you can do because if your mentor sends it,
you're going to send it.
You're going to send it.
Probably.
If your mentor's there like, hey, we got this, you're probably going to go. I would imagine climbing's the same way. You could probably get yourself into some deep water with water wings on before you realize you can't swim.
Well, and you get to the point where it's, oh, shit, I'm 3 miles out to sea. How'd that happen? I was just waiting in the water.
So that's a different thing. Like, and for me, the flip side is, I mean, I always loved climbing for the fact that it is self-regulating, that it's hard to get into trouble because you're actually moving against gravity. Because somebody can get hurt like falling off something from 15 feet up. You know, you can get off the ground and get hurt super easily, but like to get yourself into like a potentially
like to be
sort of
7,000 meters up on an 8,000 meter peak. Takes X amount of
exactly, or to be 500 feet up on a rock face or whatever it is. It's like there is and it allows your brain enough time to process the environment that you're in. Like, so if you don't belong there, you fucking know. You have the time to know. You get it, like it's speaking to you at some point.
But you physically may not be able to get there.
And exactly. Whereas with the base thing,
cable car.
Like,
hey man,
it's
let's get
cable
this
car.
car.
You're driving to the to the exit on the Verdun. There's certain there are things where it's like,
speaking of Verdun, you literally step over a railing and where they wrap from to climb.
That's where you jump from.
Look at the high ultimate in Lauterbrunnen when the ramp's out. You go and you get a brat and an espresso, and then you send it off a ramp that's held together, which I believe to be
a downhill walk,
tape and rubber bands. It shakes as you're walking out on it. It's not sketchy at all. But
it doesn't sound like it.
It's just sitting there, and their barrier to entry is low. There's no
guard.
Buy-in. There's nobody saying, "Hey, how many times have you jumped this?"
Yeah,
and people they go in.
Now, for me, I like that the buy-in is zero because as an activity, that's what is exceptional about it. Because falling and using gravity and deploying a really big parachute and landing on a grassy field is wholly uninteresting to me. It's the entire...
You got to be jumping out of a plane kind of thing.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It's the entire process, to me, of understanding. And, granted, I have the buy-in of our background, understanding the possibilities and the physicality involved there is what's interesting to me. Having to think about all the possible outcomes and then mitigating as much as it as I can possibly mitigate, and then performing the action as well as I can perform it. That's what's interesting to me.
In potential emotional duress.
Yes.
Like I like the feeling
Absolutely.
on the exit because I have to
I don't want to be comfortable.
Yeah, I have to eat and control that feeling. Or you can lose it and it can control you.
Absolutely.
And I love being in that point.
You know, and that it's unregulated and that people don't have to have any buy-in. You know, I
don't like seeing dumb people die. I'm going to throw that out there, which is what happens when
Wait.
it's unregulated. But
I'm gonna flip that on you. I'm like,
Okay.
I love seeing dumb people die.
clean up the gene pool.
Now I wasn't gonna go there.
It's okay. I said it for you.
Yes,
Saw it in your eyes.
but I mean, love is a bit strong.
I guess what I should say is I don't enjoy the present. I don't enjoy being there when they choose to do that.
Yes,
That's, I guess, what bothers me about it. I guess I don't have, if you want to go online, if you have a credit card and an internet connection, yeah, you can get everything that Trevor and I have to base jump. If you choose to do that, that's totally your choice. Please just inform me that you're about to do that so I can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because
Or
I
go-
don't want
or
to
go
have to
ahead
deal
of
with
you.
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember overhearing some point. I was with Randy Ratcliffe on a trip in the Canadian Rockies. We were simul soloing on the lower Weeping Wall, which is north of Banff. It's a big ass frozen waterfall, and some guys hiked up to the base, which is 5 minutes from the road, and I heard one of them say, "We should get out of here before something bad happens." And I hear this, and I'm just like, well, the only bad thing that's going to happen is to you.
I'm going to be
Because
fine.
I'm going to be fine because this is what I do. But you're right. You don't want to be around it when it's a terrible like wet cantaloupe sound.
Yeah. And clean up.
Yeah.
No, you call. That's someone else's job.
That's mountain rescue.
I don't want to have to make the call. That's it's like, you know what? Do dumb shit on your own time.
Yeah. But
And actually, it's a shitty thing to make a joke about.
no, it
However, sort of gallows humor, blah blah blah.
Mark,
but
you're a terrible person. It's fine.
thank you, thank you.
that's why we kept you over there.
Yeah, you guys are over here. I'm
We
like,
had this desk separating us.
We survive in our old community on gallows humor. I think it actually provides longevity and perspective.
Yeah. You can't sit there and focus on the things that, like when we were sitting around the dinner table, the last or the second to last night that we were hog hunting, and I was describing that I've either seen, been around, or known like almost a half a dozen people that have had near drownings or have drowned.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I do remember you talking about that, yes.
Yeah.
Were you talking to Barklow?
Yeah.
I don't want to derail where you're going with this, but if you had to pick what his favorite sport is to watch, what would you say it is?
Well, I know, so it's not fun. This isn't a fun game for me because I know it.
You know Barklow, Mark.
but I'm totally like I
Throw
don't.
it out there.
I know. I'm just
Pick a
now. I'm
sport.
like
Pick a sport.
Don't put it out there. But
We'll let you know.
to watch.
Yes.
To watch
To watch other people. Now
on weekends.
Now John can be kind of a cynical fellow sometimes.
Yes, it's one of his most redeeming
Yeah,
qualities.
exactly. Which also
Along with the
Probably.
love of cats.
why we
We'll just leave that
got
one
along.
floating out there.
Okay, because I you know,
We'll have a side talk about this.
yeah, I mean, I can make a guess and then be told that I'm not right, and then you're not going to tell me what it actually is. So we're going to have to.
We'll just float it.
We'll
We'll get
just
back
float
to it.
Okay, so John Barklow.
So you brought up soloing, and like I was saying before, I wanted to talk about this. All over the place. Just,
We're an hour 47 in.
are we?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
Power hour.
Power hour can be a couple hours, but dude,
power
so,
hour.
we finally got to the topic that we had mentioned before. This is awesome.
well, this one, Free Solo, the documentary, just won a Oscar. Right?
Yes, it did.
It did. It
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Jimmy Chin, Alex Honnold. You said you haven't seen it. You don't need to see it because, spoiler alert, he lived, for anybody listening. And obviously they made a documentary about him free soloing the freerider route on El Cap. What do people inside of the climbing community...
Do they ever talk about in the doc, just out of curiosity, who actually, freed Freerider first?
I
Ooh, I don't think they
believe-
talk about her. Do they?
Who? Her? No, now we're talking about something I don't even know.
Well, no, it's not. So now I can be no.
No, I'm wrong.
No, if anybody knows who did it, you would recognize a quote. No, it's not a problem. I have power to burn. That's my shit German accent. But,
so it had been free soloed previously?
No, it had been free climbed.
Free climbed, okay.
With ropes. Okay. A lot of rehearsal, but following. But it was one of the first routes up the big part of El Cap. You know, there's some routes on the west face that are a little bit shorter that have been free climbed. But that, like the big sort of feature, close to the, the nose had been freed, obviously, by Lynn Hill. That's who you're thinking about.
Which is why
I don't think they mentioned.
But Freerider was a different sort of thing. Anyway, I'm just
to the best of my knowledge, they did not discuss any
prior anything.
It was outside the purvey of what was going on.
It was for
wasn't
sure.
necessarily a
it would not have added to the story, but
what are your thoughts on that? I'm going to call it a feat. It's something that I know the guy is alive. I was watching the documentary, sweating, gripping my sofa.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you before, I totally understand why he does it. I think all of us sitting in this room probably have a better understanding of why he chose to do that. What does the rest of the climbing world think about those types of endeavors?
Who gives a fuck?
I like that answer.
I mean,
yeah.
Because, and that would be my answer from, having soloed a number of hard routes back in the day. Not like that.
Yeah.
Certainly.
What's going through your mind in that solo? I mean, are you thinking about the fact there's no rope, or are you just completely locked in on the problem at hand?
Totally locked in. I mean, there is to get to the point where you are actually able to do that. Everything else has been excised from your mind.
Part.
It's and that is quite a process to get to that point. And I mean it's a absolutely astonishing that Alex did that. But the history of climbing is littered with stories of guys. I mean, Paul Proust. I mean, I don't think the guy has fucking climbed with the rope ever in the Dolomites. There's some
shit out there.
Crazy shit that has happened.
Herman Bull's solo
and his
ascent of an
accomplishment,
8,000-meter peak.
Yeah. But so that's that's an interesting thing. But if you look at it, you're just like, he's hiking up a snow slope. Yeah, it's a pretty high snow slope, and it's killed a lot of people. And that's a dangerous thing. But then if you go back, I mean, you can search on the internet for a short little film called Cumbre, which is a film about Marco Pedrini soloing Cerro Torre in Patagonia, and which is a hard route, and it's one of the most fucked up things you'll ever see. Turn that around and realize, like, okay, so he soloed it at the time, and I'm going with 87 for some reason, but he soloed it at a time when that route, the southeast ridge of Cerro Torre, had been climbed very few times, and so he's up there by himself. He climbed it 3 times, twice for the film and once to preview, in an area which has notoriously bad fucking weather. People go down there and they spend 4 or 5 weeks and they get shut down and they can't climb anything because the weather's so fucking bad. So he was able to do it, I think, for that 3 times. And then you start looking around and now you go like, oh, it was shot with a drone, or it was a dude hanging off a rope, or this or that. And Pedrini was down there with a guy named Fulvio Mariani. And Fulvio had a fucking camera, and he was also climbing without a fucking rope.
Good on Fulvio.
So that movie got made by 2 dudes. So it's one of the craziest things if you know
Holy
about
shit.
Like the situation that you will ever see, and the and technically it's not as difficult. And yes, there are points of aid because this guy Cesar Maestri had like drilled the fuck out of it, to make the first ascent, and so he's clipping some bolts and this and that. But if you look at that. And the situation that it's happening in, which is right on the edge of the Patagonian ice cap, and it's in the place, it's the very tip of South America. It's like some of the worst.
The macro view.
If you look at the map, back out and you see the Drake Passage, and dudes don't even want to put their boats through the Drake Passage because it's so fucked up, and that is like right next door. So this is all happening in a very, very savage environment. And I look at sort of the free solo situation, and this is not taking anything away, but it is different. Sanitized in a way, and I don't mean sanitized like reduced of risk, but it is the harder and harder things get done in a reductionist manner. So you start eliminating the factors that keep you from, that might influence the difficulty of the task in order to focus purely on the difficulty itself. Right. So Pedrini's doing that, and he's just like, I want to solo Serratore because it's like, as Reinhold Messner, it's the most radical mountain in the fucking world. If you look at it, and Messner described it as a shriek turned to stone, is how he described that thing.
Excellent.
Oh, it's so excellent. And crazy, some crazy fucking shit has happened on that mountain because of the way it looks and the attraction to it and the situation it's in. But then if you want to go harder and harder, you have to start taking away the elements that you can't control. And then you start practicing. And if you think about the Don Wall film,
Yeah.
and they first free climbed El Cap, and they were just like, yeah, they were up there for 7 days. And I was like, no, they were up there for 7 fucking years.
Yeah.
Is because that's what it took.
You're projecting it.
To adapt to that level of difficulty on a physical and psychological level. And so what Alex did by free soloing El Cap, it's the result of a very long adaptation to that. And hence when you see him talking about it, it's not like that radical.
It's built on the shoulders of everything you're talking about.
It's everything that came before done by other people, but then also like the incremental exposure, the stress inoculation, if you will, of working up to it, of like, okay, how do you eat an elephant?
Bite at a time.
There you go. And that's exactly what, happened with him. And so it's a little bit more technical skill. It's a little bit more exposure. It's like, oh, now I've done this and now I've done that. And I'm a little bit closer. Okay, finally, now I'm kind of ready. For me, it's incredible that Alex did that. I will, that's all I have to say about that. I think the bigger psychological trip was with Jimmy.
Yes.
And the other guys who were behind the camera, because when you are in a situation, and if my friend Philippe Fragnol, who's cameraman in Chamonix, he filmed Bruno Gouvi when Bruno burned in. When he made 2 successful turns on the Aiguille Verte and hit some black ice and then fucking went 900 meters. And Philippe filmed the whole fucking thing. Everything when Francois Ricard died when we were in Bolivia filming Pushing the Limits, and he landed in Lake Titicaca too far offshore on the surface for 1 minute and 22 seconds. Everything's on film because you don't stop filming because they might fucking live. Like you can't turn away, you can't turn the camera off, you can't look away. But what if you're filming, the free solo situation, the dude just falls out of frame.
So they show some of this, and so the cool thing about the movie, he made 2 attempts. He actually backed off on the first attempt, and one of the things he said was, and again paraphrasing, he wanted less people around him.
The influence of the camera, and this is
the crux where the boulder problem, I think it was. He actually talked to the cameraman, and he said he wanted remote cameras because he didn't want one of his friends to have to watch that happen.
Yeah.
So they long lensed it from, I'm assuming,
the Meadow or somewhere.
The Meadow, but they're filming the guy filming it, and he cannot watch it.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I'm done. I'm never doing this again. He's losing his. And then I can only imagine Jimmy accepting that project.
Yeah.
Putting the pieces together,
being good friends.
I cannot. It's Trevor and I. We've jumped together a ton, right? If something awesome happens and it didn't happen on GoPro, did it really happen? It's the skydiving version of if a tree falls in the forest, does it make any noise? Yeah. Doing something cool in the air is not that hard. Coordinating it with other people to make it look seamless for the person doing it is actually really, really hard. Like the splitting the flag jump is a good example.
Oh, man. I wish people knew how difficult that really was.
Well, and
so were you on that also?
He was holding the flag on the left.
I was holding the flag.
Okay.
And then I've been the wingsuiter doing it.
Yeah.
Because Andy, you posted that somewhat recently.
Correct. Yeah.
And one of the best days, whatever. And I looked at that again. I was just like, oh, my friend Andy's a fucking lunatic.
About 3 feet over the top of that flag, going as fast as I could.
And we had,
with a guy flying over the top of me.
We had this many
filming.
We had this many practice jumps.
We did 1 time practice jump. The first time that video I posted was our first attempt at it. Because the practice jump we did was with a much smaller flag.
Okay.
Yeah, and but we talked about it, and we could have done all of that, but capturing it safely and talking with Miles, like, this is where I'm going to be, this is the angle I'm going to take. When I turn at it, you know that I'm going to. So only thing I was thinking was, this is where I need to fly. All I was thinking was speed, flight picture, faster, faster, faster. I didn't think about Miles. Jim was above us shooting down, so his canopy was above, so I had to go under that, over the flag, in between the two dudes. And I was more worried about these guys than I was myself, because I was just thinking about, don't kill somebody, don't kill somebody, don't kill somebody. But,
believe me, I understood once I did the jump with Jim. I was like, ooh.
It's visually intense.
Don't hit a human, don't hit a human, don't hit a human, don't hit. Oh,
but
they're gone.
There's so much that goes into that.
Because the speed differential between the guys flying the flag.
Everybody's dying.
Is 150 miles an hour.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a tether in the front of the flag. Your neck would snap like a chicken bone.
Yeah, there'd be.
It probably would pull the two guys on the flag together. It would have been a dumpster fire at best. But, the jump was...
And then it'd fall into someone's yard.
Yeah. But he had a camera on. Remy was on the right-hand side, wasn't he?
No, TJ.
TJ was on the right-hand side. Jim was above. Miles had a camera. The pressure was more on them to capture that happening. And I had a GoPro on, which was where my POV comes from. But yeah, I look at what Jimmy took on doing that. Like, that guy had to go deep into the bottle. Yeah. The day after that was done.
I actually really think he's a drinker, but
that's a strike against him.
I'll next time I see him I'll ask, but because it is harrowing, and Andy, we on the first conversation we had that we recorded, I talked about filming the snowboard exit off the west face of the Eiger. Yeah, and that's just like, okay, I gotta film this, but I
kind of don't want to.
Or I was on we did two pushing the limits pilots before we made the 35 mil version, and one of those was we got put out of the helicopter on top of the Clocher du Portelet, and Dominique Les jumped, and I was for the second movie I was actually doing all the behind the scenes stuff. So I actually had a video camera. I'm filming the guys filming the thing who's doing the thing, and he throws the orange and he got the stopwatch, and he already knows, but he's got to do base jump.
He has to make the drama.
Base jump theater. Yeah.
I don't think I'd throw an orange. Would you, Trevor? I'd throw a rock.
I like rocks.
Rocks weigh more than oranges.
They do.
But you can see an orange.
Correct.
Against that background.
Yeah, plus he already knew.
And plus he's like, he's got one or two oranges. You can always eat one.
Here's the deal. We can discuss this on Tactical Assholes. Orange versus rock.
Yes, orange versus rock. Exactly. Fuck. And if we get a VHS player, I can actually pull that. We can watch that footage.
We'll get a VHS player.
We're going to have to get it.
The internet has everything we will need ever.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, the pressure of the behind the scenes, man. Like, so some of your photography blows my mind, and I can't, like, you're doing the climb, but you're documenting the climb. Like, that's a whole nother level of responsibility.
But I don't. Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't seem that way at the time.
Maybe responsibility is the term. I don't know. Maybe the term I would use would be weight on your shoulders or burden.
So there's two different things. If we're actually doing the hard climb, and I'm there with the camera I'm participating in that, and I'm just documenting it. It's one thing. When you're doing something specifically for the camera, that's
project.
An entirely different thing.
I don't know. I've been on both. Like, I've documented, and I've been on the backside of having to document things for commercial or other reasons. And
I think what Mark's talking about is that when the cameras come out, people can start moving their threshold of what they're willing to do.
They act weird.
Yeah. It's good. And then you, with the person with the camera, you realize that you are complicit in whatever is about to happen.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, like, okay, we need to have this conversation first. Like, how close, what limit are we pushing here? How close are we to, because if you're, I'm going to go solo. I mean, there's some, in pushing limits too, there's some insane, I soloed something for that I would never have done. Like, I would never have thought of it first without it being for a thing. Like, okay, after pushing the limits 1, you sold this thing and it was pretty cool looking, but now you got to do better. because it's the sequel.
Part deux.
Yeah. And so I never would have conceived of it, and certainly never would have done it without the presence of the camera. So everybody is made this collective decision, but only one person is taking
The risk.
And that's a different sort of vibe, I guess.
Well, it's an important discussion to have. I mean, I've had it a couple times with base jumpers that are all still alive, the ones that I'm thinking of. And I've asked those guys, because they've all performed stuff at exceptionally high technical level.
Yeah, low margin.
With a lot of commercial exposure. A lot of it's been filmed.
Yeah.
And I've had the discussion because, frankly, I don't care what they think if I ask, which is, have you performed jumps that you wouldn't have done had they not been getting recorded?
Yes, they have.
100% of them said they've not only performed jumps they wouldn't have done, but they've done it more than once.
Yeah.
And that absolutely terrifies me and makes me very happy to hear, so that I keep that in the back of my mind, so that I don't put somebody else in that scenario, or I put myself in that scenario.
But it's, part of the good thing there is that they are cognizant of the fact that they are
After the fact. Often they aren't during.
okay.
That's the danger when you confuse
That snowball
gambling.
rolls downhill fast.
When you confuse gambling for risk. Like, I'll accept risk. I don't like to gamble with my life.
Yeah.
If you don't know the difference between the two, you're living in a very, very dangerous spot.
Well, and
But you can
I
also-
think it's Nicky Lauda, like the F1 driver, said that every time he hopped in the car, he had a 1 in 25 chance of, or a 25% chance of dying.
Mhm.
And he said he would never accept a single percentage point higher than that. I might get the number wrong,
Okay.
but he understood the risk involved in that sport.
he actually backed out of a few races because of that, right?
Yep.
Weather conditions and
Absolutely.
stuff. Yeah. He was acutely aware
And
of
there
it.
was one when he got
Got
burned
burned.
up in the
Yeah.
car that he said, hey, I was chasing somebody like an asshole because he wanted to go after him instead of looking at the risk, and he accepted more risk than he was really willing to do, which then turned into a gamble.
Yeah. Okay, so I see the difference there. I think it's just like, for me, it's always like influence of the camera, not influence of the camera, influence of the camera, not influence of the camera, and that's whether it's I'd never made the risk gamble sort of thing. It's just like, am I doing this for the camera? Yes. Okay, now
Is it potentially beyond my capability? Gamble.
Yeah. Right.
Could you get away with it? Maybe.
It doesn't even have to be capability. It could be just desire.
That's
You
a
could
good
have
point,
the
yeah.
desire to perform the function, and that will get you through something that you obviously have the skill for. But if you have zero desire and then you're not thinking about what you're doing, that could get you killed.
But a lot of times, what you're doing, you are technically
Capable of.
Like, I mean, I'm just thinking about this Serac that I soloed very high on Mont Blanc. That was, I mean, it would have been, I don't think I would have hit anything for the first 1,000 feet.
You're talking about on your way down?
You would
Yeah.
have had a really good track.
And then it would have been, and then, what pizzas were left after,
Yeah.
I mean, because it would have been 3 or 4 total.
It'd have been a Jackson Pollock for sure.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I mean,
It'd be
unless you're in a snowsuit, probably keep you together.
It'd be like, actually, you do. Said, when my friend Philippe got killed, he went 700 meters and he actually, his clothes held him together.
Wingsuits
'cause he
do the
was-
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if wingsuit can do that, yeah.
Snowsuit can too.
Exactly. And it's not, you're just cartwheeling at that point in the mountains. But when I think about that thing, I'm like, okay, technically it was so far within what I was able to do. Like the technical limit wasn't anywhere, but it's also not a thing there's no point to be there. It's like, yes, this is cinematic, but it's not an interesting climbing objective on its own. So therefore, already the influence of the camera takes me to a point where
You would normally
would never gone. Like hike by and I'm like, wow, that's fucking steep
neat.
and rad and holy fuck, it's a long ways down. Okay, cool. But never would have gotten. So it is it's theater from the start, and always for the camera. I mean, for me, if Niki Lauda said something like, yeah, if it's, 1 point more than 25, and, I'm not doing it. I mean, I would always choose stuff because I always had a very clear delineation. Okay, this is for the camera. This is for me. And anything for the camera, I'm going to choose something that looks good, but that is not on the cutting edge.
Yep.
Because you're going to have to do it more than once.
Yes.
And it's like, I need to be able to do this over, because, okay, there's, they check the gate after they get the shot, and there's like, oh, there's a fucking hair. Okay, you got to do it again, or the battery dies, or the thing
out of your ass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so on that particular day, actually, I soloed it, and then they're like, we need you to do it again. I'm like, it was completely fucked. I need to be tied in, and we need to figure out a way to hide it.
We need to make this look like there is no rope because I need a rope.
Because I've already done it without it.
Yeah.
And you guys documented that, and I don't give a fuck how, if you overexpose, underexpose, there's a hair, the gate's not clean. I don't give a fuck. But I am not soloing it again because the conditions, technically it's fine, but the conditions were fucked on the day that we went. And so we figured out a way, okay, we get the white rope, and I'm soloing on this ice that is relatively white, and it's actually going up the leg of my pants tied to my harness, so that when you're watching it, you're not, if you accidentally see the rope and because they couldn't remove it, then you're like, okay, we'll just do this tight from mid thigh up or whatever, and the rope will be hidden. I mean, I'm gonna go for a terrible fucking fall.
Say, that's a hell of a
been
whipper.
Exciting.
Oh no, it would have been completely fucked.
Plus,
not only do you fall really far, but your pants get torn off.
And you might be upside down in a weird way.
Oh, you're certainly upside down.
At first.
Yeah.
For sure, you're upside down.
Yeah.
At first, and then your pants get torn, zippers, whatever, off, and then you're gonna get caught on the harness. But still, and then you also want a loop of slack so that you can have free leg movement. So it's gonna be a big whipper. But that was that situation. It's like, all right, I already soloed it, but I'm not gonna do it again because it was fucked. And you guys need more, then we're going to need to find a way to mitigate that risk and do it again. And it seems like with base, I just don't, if things are happening at the cutting edge, there are likely things that you don't really want to repeat.
I would agree.
Yeah, but you see people repeating them.
Okay.
And, the odds will catch up with that behavior at some point.
Yeah.
Andy,
Yes, sir.
so right now we are in March of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We had our first conversation July of 2018.
Yep.
At that time, Alex had just
Passed.
Passed.
Yep. We bury him in Arlington next month.
wow.
I'll probably be relatively not sober. Just to deal with it.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah. Is he getting the horses and the whole thing?
I do not know because he was cremated in France.
Oh, okay.
So
you don't. Yeah.
Well, we buried a friend of mine with no, in a casket like that.
yeah, I don't know is the honest answer. I know
Okay.
he was
Depends on
cremated,
which
so there's no body to
place he
put
gets
into a
put.
coffin. Yeah.
Have you ever been? I have a friend and his he's a TFO guy. I mean, he's been around and he's out now. But his wife, when they were living there, she was actually doing a photographic project on those horses.
Huh.
And so when I think it was 2012, sometime I was there at Arlington visiting them, and she said, "Oh, we can go to the stables. We can go check out these horses." And so I got to go, and I saw the horse that the riderless horse that
Carries.
that was I think his name is Sergeant York, and he was the riderless horse for Reagan's funeral. And to just realize okay, these horses are some of the most well cared for creatures, and I don't know what the condition of her book is, but it was a pretty nice look behind the scenes there. But so in July we were speaking about that, and you had made a decision to maybe skydive but not base jump.
Correct.
Because of psychological conditions, let's say, had changed.
For sure. I mean, a lot of things had changed around that. Conversations with my wife, conversations with my kids, a realization of where I am and the story arc of my life. It was a moment of, unfortunately, it drove a moment of unfortunately due to the cause.
Yeah.
Not unfortunately that the moment of reflection or the time of reflection had occurred. But I'm assuming you're going to ask me what my decision is now, or where.
No, I just no. Actually, I'm just going to ask you if you have done a base jump since then.
No,
because it was a while ago.
I have not.
Good for you.
I spoke to the guy who was there on the jump with him, and he hasn't touched his wingsuit since that day.
No shit.
Yeah.
All right,
not
then.
the one you're thinking of.
Well,
The team guy.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised with him.
Yeah, because he's been at a few.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But actually, both of them have.
Yeah.
All right, cryptic enough. Yeah, I
both,
mean,
both people that were in the area when Alex died. Have both been around a lot of fatalities.
Yeah, and I mean, and you see that, and
it's just like high level climbing.
Yeah,
if you're in a sport like that for long enough and manage not to kill yourself, you're going to be around a lot of death.
People who did. Yeah.
I have my Stars and Stripes wingsuit is in my office at my house, and every time I look at it, I see Alex. I see his smile, his laugh, and until I get to the point where that's not what I see when I look at that suit, I can't do it. And if I never get to that point, then I'm done as far as base jumping goes.
I'm going to say good for you. And it not because I don't that I think you should stop. It's just like, okay, that's actually a very real decision. And something that you haven't not thought about.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy one to come to, and it's something I toil with and I struggle with, and his funeral will be extremely difficult, and it'll probably make me think more about him when I look at that suit. So, it's funny, in my mind, skydiving and base jumping are so detached. Like, I could throw that suit on and go skydiving, zero problem whatsoever.
Yeah,
but just I don't know. I don't know if I ever will again.
No, because to base jump, I mean, you got to hike up. You got to. There's like you would be spending a lot of time in your head with him.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
On the approach, and I think that my sense is like if you take that journey a few times, and then maybe you sort of adapt to it, and have a relationship with it, or not. But you need to do that approach in like I think that's if you go to the Lauterbrunnen, you go to the easy exits or whatever, the ones that are easy to get to.
Yep.
That's not the
experience I'm looking for.
Exactly. And it's not the thing that will transform you or heal you in a way, as if you could be healed. I mean, I don't mean I don't mean that. But that could sort of resurrect the desire and that sort of thing. But I think it's the long walk that needs to happen, because if you can get through that, then you can probably make the jump. But if you can't handle the approach, and you need to make that approach as long as fucking possible, so
like I said, the jump is optional.
Yeah,
the landing is not.
Yeah.
And on that note, we only have one more topic to discuss: dinner.
Oh.
Dudley's starving.
Dudley's he's talking about dinner.
Yes, gentlemen. What are we at for the power hour?
2:30 probably.
Perfect.
Something like that. I mean,
shall we reconvene shortly for Tactical Assholes?
Yeah, maybe in like 24 hours.
I need to put some footage together and get a projector so we can all watch it.
I was going to say, because
I have a projector. Like one of the little ones.
Yeah, there was actually
there's one here.
There was not. Ross,
we have to take our time, gentlemen.
Okay.
We have to take our time because we need to bring it.
Let us not rush.
We need to
the
bring
Tactical
it.
Asshole
it
podcast
needs to sting and cut deep.
I think cliffhanger would be a good start because there's military things and climbing.
Honestly, I think Navy SEALs Charlie Sheen first movie.
How could you not start with that?
Are we going to rappel from the ceiling?
No, we should. If we have flight suits, MP5s, and handlebar mustache.
Oh my god!
I know.
Can we make this happen?
Wait.
Technically, we could make it happen, but it's just who wants to.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll come back to that because Dudley's going to die if we don't feed him.
No.
He's had an emotional day.
He's fidgeting.
You absolutely. It has to start with that movie.
I think it does.
Like because everything after that,
Everything
Here's
should
the
start
deal.
with a Draeger jump from
Well,
30,000
if
feet.
you're going to make fun of anybody, you better start with yourself, which is exactly
Yeah.
what we would be doing.
Oh, yeah. We'll double down.
We will. And honestly, Navy SEALs has so many opportunities. Like, we're going to struggle to keep it less than 15 minutes.
Maybe-
And
Oh,
maybe
fuck,
it's
I
an
can't even-
extended-
why
maybe
would
it's an
you limit
extended
yourself?
opener. Just an extended
I'm
opener.
it's like the power hour. It could be 115 minutes, but I'm
It
just
could be
saying
just 15.
I'm going to aim for 15 of high quality, stinging commentary that people will likely be very upset about.
Holy fuck.
It's going to be great.
Okay, so
That's
so
a
there's
personal problem for them.
You get to pick the climbing film. You
Okay.
can pick your own genre.
so we need to do a there's got to be a I'm reminded of a 2-part episode of Miami Vice way back in the day when they
Which, of course, we can have a police officer come in and join us for a review of Miami Vice.
Except the one thing that I'm thinking about is when they I think this guy's first name is Jim, but he was a national champion IPSC shooter at the time.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And they had him on. He was technical advisor, but they put him in front of the camera. And when he fucking throws down and drops these dudes, I'm just like, oh, that is fucking classic IPSC stage right there.
I think
so fucking
I think
good.
they've turned it into like a GIF or a meme.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
It's like the best and only correct shooting
Shooting
ever performed
ever
on
performed.
camera.
Yeah, so there's the movie Thief with James Caan, and there's some pretty good shooting in that. But this is back in the day. But then there's there's a more current one. I think it's called Triple Tap. Is the name of the movie.
God.
It's so good because it's one of the really really good kids shooting in that. And it opens up and he's on his and it starts with he's on his way back from a practical pistol competition. Some shit goes down and he's like, oh, I can solve this.
I have my things.
And basically the timer goes off and he double taps everybody.
I like it.
And it's perfect. And I'm just like, you guys, you need to do this in slow motion. The reason this is filmed in slow motion is because he is actually physically in real life operating
fast.
his weapon so fast that you don't understand what he's done.
It doesn't look cool.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let me remind you of a genre that I think is due a review, and that is anything Steven Seagal. Have you even considered this yet?
Well, why, yes, I have. In fact,
Because
I have
he
notes.
was Casey Ryback. Under Siege 1 and
He
2
was.
deserve to be reviewed for tactical accuracy.
Broken Arrow.
however,
Broken Arrow's Nicolas Cage. Don't confuse your
um,
fucked up
Yeah,
war
no.
movies.
yeah, I was gonna say don't confuse the fucked upness, but
So he
I
falls into the SEAL genre, and then also whatever that other crazy shit that he does.
we can double down on guys that have
whatever
we can
running.
double down on
Are
guys
you
that
talking?
have done multiple SEAL movies like Michael Biehn.
Well, The Abyss. So I was going to have Barklow do a review of The Abyss while wearing a hard shell diver helmet, and I would feed him cocktails through a straw.
Threw a straw through the
Oh, yeah.
like that. Okay, we're good.
So he's already in. Evan would agree to do the Army side of the house, so we'll have an Army representative. It's endless. I mean, if we get low on content,
Tired of coming up with last-minute desperate solutions to impossible problems created by other fucking people.
That would be my favorite clip from Under Siege.
Yes.
Just happened to have it on my phone because Tommy Lee Jones is the man, and not only that, he's got a pretty cool Walther in his hand when he's doing that scene.
this is true. So that's what we have to look forward to, gentlemen. There will be another meeting of this roundtable, even though we're more of an
Sort
triangle
of
at this
triangle
point.
at this point.
Kind of
Yeah,
L.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's coming. Thank you guys for this. Was awesome.
Thank you.
I think we barely touched on what we were going to talk
We
about,
kind of
but
hit the
those are the
tip
best
of a couple
podcasts.
little pieces.
Yeah.
yeah.
Until next time, gentlemen. Until next time.
Until
Absolutely.